got your 6.
At 6 a.m. with The Link on Breeze 93.9 FM. Bree and I connect you with all the latest news and information you need to know to start your day.
Then check back with Guam's news leader at 6 p.m. for the day's top headlines with KUAM News Primetime.
From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and everything else in between with KUAM Digital, we got your 6.
Così uli die sombranza tremmak et zu ita saluda antes diu hum niga Radzauds and malak estrezas durante todo em memu a no distância como cupo que palo Zangiman malak guafi ikonum nasugi airi prebatula noci nai banderata gaigi pues Atan Fanny Bandera Ko esta pagua pumalalapa Giluk tanu man libri Sentamiti man ko badi
Panogita moru purita nota Kantai matu nanyagi todu ilugat Parai honra, parai gloria Abibai isla sin parat Parai honra, parai gloria Abibai isla sin parat Todo y tiempo y paz para kita Dan gini langit na bendition Conchay peligro na fan sofuham Zeus protegis Lan Guahan Conchay peligro na fan sofuham Zeus protegis Lan Guahan
All right, let's go. Good morning, Guam. Good morning, Guam. Good morning, CNMI.
Good morning, Malolo.
Today in CNMI, Fresno, we see you, Rosa Charkaloff. Go Bulldogs!
Good morning, New Hampshire, checking in on our KUAM News Facebook Live feed.
Good morning, Florida.
Good oranges down there. Today and good morning to, the Kineni family. Have you guys seen that, like, over in Tejan, like, right on the cliff line? They really, like, they have got an amazing house. They really, like, you know, like, gravel carport.
Right
gravel
on.
carport. No, it's an amazing house. Good
Cascal,
morning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, good morning to the Kineni family, the amazing house.
Roadrunners in the house.
BMS, yes, good morning. Also, good morning, Bardstown, Kentucky, and Debbie Davis checking in this morning.
Mahalo and aloha to our friends in the state of Hawaii. Aloha and Hafide all together as one. We see you guys.
Good morning to my mom. I just saw she logged in.
Nice, nice.
Good morning, Auntie.
Yes, good morning, Humatic. Good morning, Malesso, in Aloha, and Talafofo, Ipan. Hey, good morning. Agate.
Good morning to Totu Gardens. Good morning, Baza Gardens, and that little, if you go all the way in the back of Baza Gardens, you know, with the nice condos and everything, Calle de Silencio and Casa de Serenidad. That's what
Right
that,
on.
that
Good
back
morning,
is.
Academy Gardens. Little throwback for you guys.
Good morning, Las Vegas and San Diego.
Good morning, Aga Boulevard, home of the NASCAR drivers. Sorry.
Good morning, Georgia.
Good morning, Virginia.
Good morning if you live near a school.
Good morning if you live near a store.
Yeah, right on.
Good morning, everyone.
Right on. Thank you, Bree. Bree's like, I don't want to do this 10-minute good morning. Good morning, guys. It's Friday. Betness! Whoa! Biba Betness. The 18th day of September. This is the link on the Breeze 93.9. Good morning, Vanessa writes. Chris Malafunction Barnett in the Don't Eat Mask. Yes, thank you, Guam. Funny memes for the mask. You check them out on Instagram. They got a bunch of locally themed masks. Bree is rocking the Where America's Day Begins Guam license plate mask.
Yeah, and so a lot of these, all of the masks really are designed by local artists.
Right.
And so Anthony Sayama, he used to be a beat reporter here at KUAM, just reached out, said, hey, you know, Bree, I'd like to give you guys some masks. And I said, oh, okay, sure.
Hey, thanks, Tony.
Yeah, so thank you.
Oh, Jason's a little butthurt.
Oh, yeah, yes. I got a nice Chamarita mask for you, Jay. It's about the closest you'll get to a chamarita as you put it on a mask.
Yeah, well, we did have at least...
Oh, so it's going to be that kind of Friday, huh?
Wasn't it already?
Oh.
We did have at least a couple comments that were saying they want to see us cha-cha. I mean, I was trying, but, that's probably, getting it off on a comedy, start. But people were saying, good cha-cha form. Okay, we've talked about this before on this show. Mm-hmm. Do both of you, when you guys cha-cha, do you just go completely back and forth in a straight line, or do you do, the turn when you, or...
It depends on the conditions of the dance floor. If
you're
it allows...
If you're pro level, do you do the diamond? Because if you're diamond, you're on, that's Antigo.
That's master class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Next level cha-cha.
Yeah, I'm just staying in my lane here.
Really?
Yeah.
I always...
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, turn. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
I always pegged you as a diamond guy, because, you're...
Well, I just got, I swing when I swing. I don't want to accidentally hit, Auntie over here with a hard elbow. So I just make sure I stay in my lane.
What do you guys think in the chat room? Are you guys more back and forth, one, like Bree said, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or can you guys do, the diagonal one?
Or do you do the little, the Manamco at Chamorro? Remember there's this place called Chamorro Village? Yeah. Do you guys remember that?
Oh,
and there was this thing, I read about it. They used to have this thing called it was called the Wednesday night market night.
Something like that.
Wednesday night market, and
that's
people
old
would,
school Guam 6 months ago.
They would go and they would go out and they would eat shish kebabs and nobody was wearing a mask and they would have cha-cha playing and people would be doing this thing called dancing with each other.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember that. I think I remember at one point I went out there to do a whole story with the Manumcos that were dancing.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I think it was a Wednesday night.
Yeah, it was on a Wednesday night. It was called something like a night market.
Yeah, I think.
And there was a guy, Mr. Uggan. He had a Carabao that I would like to ride once in a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was good. That was
good times.
Google it, guys.
Okay, we got a great comment right here. Feedback on what style of cha-cha you can do. Mark Santa says depends on the number of beers.
Right. Good morning to Somerville. Yeah, and we started the show with that track from the late John Foggy. We got the word yesterday that he had passed. I know he'd been battling diabetes for a long time. Man, and I really think was just, to me, one of my most favorite Chamorro artists to come out in the last 10, 15 years. The album he dropped that has that song on it, Guam, it's classic. It was an instant classic. And I know he wrote a lot of those songs with his dad, and to me, he just really personified everything that we talk about when we talk about people who perpetuate the language and the culture through music. And Kevy Kev also, we haven't had the chance to offer our condolences to Kevy Kev and his family. And both these guys really came up on Isla 63, right? And they were, man, when I came over here to KUAM in 2004, after coming from Hit Radio and doing Malfunction, that was cool, right? But when I came over here and I saw the love that the DJs on Isla 63 got, people would be bringing John Foggy and Kevy Kev, Binadu legs and parrotfish and smoked meat and tuba, and I would be looking over. It's funny because I'd be looking over, across the hall, because they were always across the hall, hey, I want that life. So these guys were really loved by the community, and they really thrived in a time when radio was different. You know what I mean? It's there wasn't a Spotify, there wasn't this, you know what I mean? It was radio, and that's when I came up too, and it was a special bond that you shared with your audience, and the bond that the Isla 63 DJs from the late JT Palomo to Helen Island Girl Uggan to Kevy Kev to you guys know even going back to Big Boz and Sis Chamorro, the bond that the listeners shared with the DJs on Isla, DJs like Kevy Kevin, John Foggy, unbreakable bonds. I mean, these guys people were just glued to that, and they worshiped Kevy Kevin and John Foggy and the Isla DJs. And so again, it's one of those things where they might not be with us anymore here in this physical world, but they're living on through the work that they left behind and all the lives that they touched, not just through the radio, but through, Kevy was a DJ. He would DJ tons of parties. I was going through our computer back there, and I was just listening to some, there's a couple malfunctions that me, John, Kev, Julius, and Andy had all jumped on, and so I was listening to those yesterday, and Kevy would always do these remixes, man. He had a remix for every song, and he would go and DJ these parties, and I would see it, man, and I thought people were into me, but they looked at Kevy, Kev, and John oh my God, they were just, and I just wanted to be part of that vibe, and I'm glad that they let me. And it's just it's tough. It's tough. Very tough.
And not only were they just popular DJs on Isla 63, just here at work, they were always so nice and fun to be around and just hardworking. And so that's the one thing I'm going to miss really about the two of them, and most especially Kevy, because he would be setting up, wherever we had a remote or anything like that. He was always the go-to person. And I'm really going to miss him.
Yeah, I remember just thinking, running late, getting up, going to a 5K, getting a call from Kev. Don't worry, it's already set up already. It's all ready for you to go. All you got to do is turn on the mic. And here I'd come in watching, hey, and it'd all just be ready to go. And John, he played a lot of gigs, parties. I mean, he was playing with One Sound. I mean, God, I think we hosted something right before the pandemic. So these guys were just always out there in the community, even though they weren't necessarily on the radio as DJs. It's been a few years. They, again, just continue to be out there. And you guys know, I mean, how many parties you've been to where Kev was hosting, or, John Faji and the Kai Pats were playing. And so, again, one of those things where they might not be with us here, but I just feel like with guys like Kev, John Faji, it's almost like they become bigger in death. And so our condolences to the families, to the friends, and all the loved ones, and all of our radio colleagues, because, radio, it's a tight-knit community, and we all know each other, and we all know that these guys have passed, and we're all just kind of, I mean, how many radio friends have texted each other like, hey, you doing okay because of these guys passing? And that's something you see when people pass. Sometimes it brings the living closer together, and I think that's an inspiration. 6:29, let's go ahead and get the show started again. It's proudly brought to you by First Hawaiian Bank, Calvo Enterprises, and IT&E. We'll go ahead and start with a look at news, and then we'll run down the guests. Well, might as well do that now. Ton of guests this morning. Dr. Peter Lombard crunching COVID stats. We have Dr. Hoa to unpack the PAG meeting last night. Maria Pangilinan, the Guam Election Commission. The election will continue. We'll get the official word from her. Also, Annette Uggan and Dr. Ann Pobutsky, the territorial epidemiologist. Coming up, we've got Rear Admiral John Manoni ringing in by phone. Attorney General Levin Camacho, Mary Rhodes of GHRA. And then Quarantine Chronicles. He's got a pretty funny Instagram story. Bree.
Did you catch it?
I dropped him a
funny.
follow, and I was watching his Instagram story. It looks like he got the PS4 last night.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do a Zoom here with Trev Jones, a UFC fighter, and we're also scheduled to get Roque Martinez, the heavyweight champion of Guam, on. But I'm not. He might have jumped on one of these quarantine lawsuits. So
Yeah, he's gonna try and make it if he doesn't have a hearing. So him and Trevin will come in at the same time and talk with us and share their quarantine chronicle. That's the plan. Hopefully, they'll be able to come on together.
And then we're going to give you guys a sneak peek, as we do on Fridays, and it's brought to you by the Thrive Coalition, where we remind you it takes a village to raise healthy and drug-free youth. We'll be giving you a sneak preview of Victorious Falon's new drop, the One Micronesia podcast. Jay, when's that? Does that debut after the show?
Yep, it's going to be, actually, if you want to check it out. Oops.
Yeah, there's a microphone here.
Yeah, we got you a mic, Jay.
Okay, if you want to check it out, you can go on YouTube right now. It's going to be on KUM TV tonight at 6:30 on Channel 8. And, Vic's been doing, and, he's really taken ownership, like you said last week, Chris, is you said you were actually kind of encouraging him, and you're like, dude, this is your show. That doesn't mean automatically, you're, Mr., big head star and everything. That means you've got a lot on your shoulders, and you've got a lot of responsibility to tell the story the right way. So he said, he's done some interviews with members of the FAS community on Guam, and now he's saying, let's focus for the next couple of episodes on organizations who really promote a message of unity. And not just with, FSM residents that have made Guam their home, but with all Guamanians, and said, we're all part of this Pacific family. We're all sharing this space. That doesn't mean we just have to coexist. That means we all help each other out. We learn from each other. We share with each other. And tonight he's got the Humanities Guahan organization, and he's got 3 amazing ladies who really drive that ship. It's an incredible interview. I actually checked it out and everything like that. You're going to learn a lot from it.
Does he have Nadine on?
He's got Nadine.
Okay.
He's got Dr. Kimberly
Nice.
Keeling, and I know I'm forgetting, but it's a jam-packed episode. You're going to get a lot out of it. So again, that's YouTube, KUM TV8 at 6:30 tonight, and then streaming on Facebook tomorrow for our friends in the States that can't stay up that late. But that's going to be 10 a.m. Guam time.
Right.
One Micronesia podcast.
We'll give you a little preview on the show here. And yes, we're going to jump back into our senatorial candidate interviews. We got a comment here. Voting starts tomorrow. Yes, it does. And so.
And make sure you make an appointment. You have to call the Guam Election Commission, 477-9791.
Yeah, we'll get Maria Pangilinan on at the top of the hour to kind of walk us through the whole process for voting. It's time now for a look at the day's headlines from the KUAM News team. Good morning, Sabrina Salas-Matanani.
Half a day, everybody. Guam recorded its 31st COVID-related fatality on Thursday. A 77-year-old woman with underlying health conditions. She passed away Thursday around 5 p.m. She was admitted to GMH on August 27th and tested positive during initial workup. Governor Lulian Guerrero saying with each passing, due to COVID-19, the families are not the only ones at a loss. Our entire island community suffers as well. Almost every day of this month, we have announced the death of one of our own, and we are reminded of just how fragile life can be. Let us continue to treat each other with love and compassion. As we grieve, we should remember our blessings and remain unwavering in our resolve to beat COVID-19. The Joint Information Center, in the meantime, reporting 32 new COVID infections out of 402 samples ran through various labs. 16 were identified through contact tracing. Guam's COVID case count is now 2,045. 587 island residents are actively fighting the virus, while there have been more than 1,700 recoveries. And with more headlines, here is Jason Salas.
Hey everybody, I got dressed up for you just so we can read you the news. Well, Guam will remain under lockdown for another week. As yesterday, Adelu Press Secretary Crystal Paco San Agustin says the governor will sign an executive order today, keeping her P-Corps 1 directive and stay-at-home order in effect until next Friday, but with modifications.
The difference from what we have now versus what you can expect tomorrow at noon when this one comes into effect is that non-essential curbside retail will be allowed. Also notably different is that restaurants and eating establishments may allow customers onto the premises, but limited for the purposes of takeout dining. So now if you're going to go to the restaurant, pick up your order, they don't necessarily have to come out to you. You can actually enter the establishment, pick up your food that you've already ordered in advance of your arrival.
In-office voting, additionally, by appointment only at the GEC is authorized to begin on Saturday. The modified P-Corps 1 conditions of the stay-at-home order goes into effect at noon today. Senatorial endorsements were announced also by the Action PAC Committee, a political action group consisting of a consortium of local business chambers of commerce. They came up with a list of no fewer than 12 candidates, 10 Republicans, and a pair of Democrats. Nestor Lacanto gives you the rundown.
Action PAC Executive Director Laura Dakanai says they sent a questionnaire to all of the senatorial candidates, but only about 50% responded. 27% were Democrats, 73% Republicans. Also, 27% were incumbents, 73% newcomers. Of the 12 endorsees, 10 are Republicans, 2 Democrat, and just 4 are incumbents.
Our objective was to ensure that there was fairness for all the candidates, avoiding any political alignment, just a pure, fair, and balanced list. The Action PAC outlined our key initiatives, and that is what we were looking at in terms of analyzing and grading the responses that we received.
She declined to name the 7-member panel that vetted the responses, but said it was not partisan. Democrats had pushed back earlier, though, saying they believed the questionnaires were. Endorsees were asked to support 5 initiatives to reduce the size of government, improve transparency, support the military buildup, move to a part-time legislature, and roll back the BPT from 5 to 4%.
This is not an endorsement per se of the candidate. This is a support of candidates who support initiatives.
Dakanai says they have not committed to any monetary donations, but do plan to campaign for their endorsees. She adds that they will also monitor the activities of those that are elected to ensure they remain accountable to the initiatives they pledge to support. For Guam's News Network, I'm Nestor Lacanto.
Nestor, thank you much. Pico Catholic Cemetery, in other news, will be closed temporarily after a staff member tested positive for COVID-19 there. Catholic Cemeteries of Guam Incorporated says the administrator made the decision to suspend all operations at the Anigua Cemetery until employees are tested and cleared. The cemetery regularly has its facilities deep cleaned and sanitized and is continuing that effort. They apologize for any inconvenience this may cause for residents. That is what's making news now. Now, let's get you back to Chris and Bree on the link.
Thanks, Jace. The Department of Public Health announces that the emergency allotments for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, for the month of September will be released today. These benefits will be electronically loaded into the SNAP recipient EBT cards. Attorneys say it's imprisonment in reference to the quarantine residents who are, quote, suffering a constitutional injury. Yesterday afternoon, the matter was brought before the court as multiple petitions were filed against the government and the Department of Public Health. Adriana Cotero has the story.
The sole argument?
Issues, I think, across the board are...
The sole argument?
Issues, I think, across the board are very similar. We are trying, each and all of us are trying to get the government of Guam to act within the parameters of the quarantine that they themselves have established. These people are suffering physically and mentally, but they're also suffering a constitutional injury.
Bringing the matter to light, attorneys Jackie Terlahi, Tom Fisher, and Rachel Azuzu are before Superior Court Judge Elise Iriarte this afternoon, arguing for their clients' civil liberties, alleging they did not consent and were compelled into the mandatory 14-day passenger quarantine in GovGuam facilities.
The fact of the matter is that we each represent our clients, and we have to do the best that we possibly can for each of our clients. Now, has a DPHSS engaged in conduct that is so arbitrary that this travel quarantine should be modified? Perhaps. That's the question that the court has to answer.
The court determined to consolidate the cases in order for witness testimony and cross-examination to occur once. The first case heard late this afternoon was petitioner Janella Cruz. Representing the government, Deputy Attorney General James Canto calls Cruz up to the stand to testify. Cruz testified she was at the airport baggage claim area to pick up her 2 minor children traveling in from Saipan. She says in speaking with Public Health prior, she was informed her children may quarantine at home, and there would be random inspections from DPHSS. However, she says on the arrival date, law enforcement forced Cruz and her husband to decide who would get on the bus to the quarantine facility with their children. Otherwise, the minors would be placed in the facility with strangers. Cruz and her 2 children are in day 10 of their quarantine at Dusit Thani. She is represented by attorney Azuzu.
And in Ms. Cruz's case, the same thing. It's a resounding concern that the government has deprived these individuals without due process. And the court was very clear in the EGROS decision that Public Health has done exactly that since sometime in April.
As reported in the EGROS case, the court ruled the government is required to use an involuntary quarantine process rather than a voluntary quarantine process. Since the Office of the Attorney General filed a motion for reconsideration, arguing the voluntary quarantine is valid under Guam law. According to the OAG, quote, the voluntary quarantine process is not only expressly or authorized by law, but preferred before resorting to exercising involuntary quarantining powers, unquote. The court has set a motion hearing on this matter for September 25th. As for the remaining petitions, the hearing continues tomorrow morning in Judge Iriarte's courtroom.
We cannot sacrifice civil liberties in the face of this pandemic. It's, the lawyers just love to use this phrase, a slippery slope. Well, this one is extremely slippery. It's icy. If we allow ourselves to just give up civil liberty because we are afraid, well, it's hard to say where that's going to end.
In national news, President Trump called his CDC director after hearing some of the comments from Dr. Robert Redfield during a congressional hearing. The president took issue with Redfield's testimony about a coronavirus vaccine timeline and the importance of masks. Natalie Brand has more details from the White House.
President Trump is disputing his own CDC director's testimony at a congressional hearing Wednesday.
You have 2 questions. Maybe he misunderstood both of them.
Dr. Robert Redfield told lawmakers a vaccine could be approved by the end of the year, but may not be widely available until next year.
If you're asking me when is it going to be generally available to the American public so we can begin to take advantage of vaccine to get back to our regular life, I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter, 2021.
Under no circumstance will it be as late as the doctor said.
The White House pushing back this morning, says the CDC isn't the only agency involved in the deployment and distribution of a vaccine.
While Dr. Redfield may have a timeline in mind, to my knowledge, he hasn't had intimate discussions with those processes.
It wasn't just the timing of vaccine distribution that President Trump contradicted. He also took issue with Dr. Redfield's testimony about masks.
They work, and they are our best defense. I might even go so far as to say that this face mask is more guaranteed to protect me against COVID than when I take a COVID vaccine.
When I called up Robert today, I said to him, what's with the mask? He said, I think I answered that question incorrectly.
In a statement, Dr. Redfield did not directly address the president's claim, but he did reiterate masks are part of the best defense against the spread of the virus.
We have to have this national mandate. We must do it.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden says his legal team believes he would have the authority as president to order a national mask mandate. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
And that is your news this hour. We'll have more on the link after this.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
Your life moves quickly, so you need a card that keeps up with you. Tap and go with our contactless debit cards. Just open a checking account at First Hawaiian Bank.
Small businesses are an important foundation in our island's growing economy. They provide essential goods and services to our community while preserving local traditions and creating new job opportunities. Your responses to the 2020 Census of Guam will help small businesses receive the information they need to thrive for years to come. Respond today. Together, we can make a difference.
These are some of the signs that someone is thinking about suicide. Talking about wanting to die, excessive guilt or shame, and feeling like a burden to others. Feeling empty, hopeless, trapped, or having no reason to live. Feeling extremely sad, anxious, agitated, or full of rage with unbearable emotional or physical pain. Other signs include changing behavior, such as making a plan or researching ways to die, withdrawing from friends or saying goodbye, giving away important items or making a will, taking dangerous risks such as driving extremely fast, displaying extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping more or less, and using drugs or alcohol more often. If you or someone you know is showing these warning signs, get help as soon as possible. Call Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center's crisis hotline at 647-8833 or 4.
Hafa Day, my name is Zena Cruz Vecina, a registered nurse with the Department of Public Health and Social Services. COVID-19 continues to be a very real threat to Guam. Wearing an appropriate cloth face covering in public is a simple and important way you can protect yourself and others on our island. During a pandemic, no single action will stop the spread of the virus. Wash your hands often with soap and water, and stay 6 feet away from others. Prevention saves lives. For more information, please call 311 or check out our website at www.dphss.guam.gov.
You're watching The Link with Chris and Sabrina on TV 11, but don't leave yet because we're coming up next on CBS This Morning.
We got your 6.
at 6 a.m. with The Link on Breeze 93.9 FM. Bree and I connect you with all the latest news and information you need to know to start your day.
Then check back with Guam's news leader at 6 p.m. for the day's top headlines with KUAM News Primetime.
From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and everything else in between with KUAM Digital, we got your 6. Resident in-house COVID cruncher. Dr. Peter Lombard joining us live from, where are you at, Doc?
My lovely kitchen.
That is nice.
That is nice. That's not. I thought that was a TV.
It's a different angle every time I see you, so
Right, yeah.
it looks a little different every time.
I thought you were at the summer residence or something. It's 6:49. So, Doc, last time we talked to you, I know it was about 3 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago.
Right. And
Yeah.
I got to say, you ruined our weekend, first of all.
Yeah. You know, I think the last time we talked to you, it's been, I think, every day, almost every day, someone has passed away. And, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that we're going to see, you know, more deaths just based on the hospitalizations and the people that are on the ventilators. And, I mean, I was hoping that would not be true. But
you've been,
unfortunately.
It's been a tough few weeks for sure, but not, unfortunately, not unexpected given the numbers of cases we have and the ages that they are. And that's the real key, because the fatality rate for somebody in their 70s is far different than somebody in their 30s, but we just have enough numbers that it's really making a difference. And we've also seen people dying well below the you know, at much younger ages as well. So I think when I talked to you last time, I said, you know, something like 6 or 7 deaths this week and 15 the next. And it's this little mini model I made has been eerily accurate. You know, we predicted, I predicted a 29 total deaths at the end of last week, and it was almost spot on. Not, I think, a little bit by accident or, you know, a little bit lucky, but I think that the calculation and the methodology that I used to do that by taking age-specific fatality rate is was actually fairly reasonable to do. And the good news is that last week would have been our highest week of deaths, if there's anything positive we can take from that. But this week, the model predicts a total of 9 deaths, and next week 4. So we're certainly not out of the woods, but because the numbers are coming down, that things are starting to improve. We can see it in the total cases. We can see it in the hospitalizations. We peaked in our hospitalizations in the mid to upper 50s. Now we're in the 40s, and things aren't coming down that fast. I think last time I said I was a little bit surprised at how robust the second wave was. I never expected it to be this robust, because I figured, hey, we do everything we did the first time and we're going to be able to squash it just like we did the first time. But when you look at the mobility reports, it's clear. The first PCOR 1, we were 50% below our baseline. The best we got this PCOR was 25% below baseline mobility, people out on the streets and driving around. So, and the first PCOR, we sustained that low mobility at 50, 45% below baseline for 4 weeks. And and this time we went down to 25% below baseline, and it's just kind of slowly creeping up. We're still keeping around 20%, which, I think is the reason why we're still seeing our numbers improve. But it's not as quick of a resolution to this recent surge as we could have hoped for.
And it's interesting because I feel like the data that we're facing now is more dire. The situation, the deaths, the number of positive cases, the spread of the virus. It's like the evidence that we have now really warrants a response that we had in the first lockdown. But I mean, we're not getting that, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it's dire from the standpoint of, we're seeing a lot more deaths this time, and I've been watching your guys' interviews, and Dr. Uggin's interview was fantastic, and I know she's super busy, but to see her come on and tell us what it's like there, I think really brings it home. But I think the other very discouraging part is that we don't really see an end to this. We're in PCOR 1, but the numbers are just really barely trickling down. We see an extension to the stay-at-home order week after week, and I think people are just getting really tired. I think trying to look on the bright side of things, we've made it through the peak of this surge. We're on the downturn, and if you look at our total prevalence of people that have had the disease now, we're probably close to 20% of the population, and that's pretty significant. And there's some epidemiologists out there that think that that's a pretty key number to get through. And when you pass the 20% mark, then future outbreaks will be a lot more manageable, because you're really reducing the number of susceptible people that have the ability to spread to others. Even if you only decrease that by 1 out of 5 people, well, the heterogeneous mix of people, those are the people that are more likely to spread it anyway. So it's actually a more augmented effect, that it's only 20% and not that 50-60% that you hear for herd immunity. But the 20% matters, and I think that's a key takeaway. And I think it will be harder for us to have a sustained outbreak like this one in the future, even when we start to relax things. And that bodes well. It's not to say we need to we can let our guards down by any means. We have to continue to do what we can to protect our vulnerable.
Right. So what do you make, Doc, of this idea that we've been under this lockdown for a month, Bree?
Yeah, a month today, and then week 5 is.
Right, and so we haven't seen the decline in anything really. I mean, we've only seen an uptick. Yet we're easing up on restrictions, and I get it. I get the pressure, but it just kind of seems again like mixed messaging when you talk about the first lockdown, and now it's an extension of a stay-at-home order. But hey, guys, go and do your curbside retail and go. So, do you think we've reached the point where people talk about just living with it, right? Is this the point we really want to live at, where we're teetering on the brink of collapse at the Guam Memorial Hospital? I'm just not comfortable with this. I don't know if the governor just like, okay, fine, you guys want to go deal with it. I'm not sure what the mentality was there, because I feel like they'd make these pronouncements and then run back and hide in Adelup. And so
Yeah,
I'm just
I
not sure.
think you hit the nail on the head right there in terms of that is the challenge. How close to the brink do we want to be? How comfortable are we? Because it's very easy to say, and I believe it's true. I think that the lockdown and the stay-at-home order, I do believe that it saved some COVID lives. A few more people in the hospital, and we would have lost more just because the hospital was overwhelmed. I don't think you can argue that that's not true. But on the same note, you also have to understand and recognize that there are also collateral damage from the lockdown. People being in isolation, elderly people without having their support team. I had a woman who came in walking with a cane, and I asked her what happened. She said she fell because she didn't have her normal people helping her around. She hasn't had a chance to get her MRI yet to see how bad it is. Falls in the elderly can be fatal. We know from good data that after a fall, you're going to have a steady decline in your health. Things like that are very hard to capture. But I think all of these things are happening out there. And it's a mixed bag because you don't want people to die of COVID, but you also don't want the collateral damage in terms of people's health, not getting their routine health maintenance. You also don't want the social aspects of being isolated and whether or not there's domestic violence going on, increased suicides. All these things absolutely matter, and to some degree, we have to temper the fact that yes, we're saving lives, but we're also potentially creating more problems for ourselves by keeping the lockdown. So I get to play both sides. And at least I'm saying I think we all need to be cognizant of both sides. And I think that that the hospital right now, even though they're stretched to their gills, I think is if we're at 35 cases per day average on a weekly basis right now. That's a number that is likely sustainable for GMH. And the numbers are probably going to keep going down. So I think from that standpoint, that's probably what they're looking at and saying it's okay to start relaxing some things. And again, with the hope that the fact that we're potentially at 20% prevalence will help us from having another rapid increase in cases. I think it's reasonable. I think that as much as I'm trying to make sure both sides of the tail are being heard. I definitely think that we can afford to, or we need to try to live with the virus and allow more businesses to open in a way that's smart. Because we don't, I think there's definitely ways we can continue to allow some targeted businesses to continue to do their work and let people go to work while still keeping our numbers at a reasonable level.
Okay. What about the testing component? We're getting public health on in a little bit, but as from what I know, the numbers that we're seeing are kind of like the tail end, and we'll get them on and get them to clarify. But from what we understand, it's the tail end of targeted testing. That's close contacts of positive cases. So, are you confident when we talk about the snapshot of where we're at right now? Do you think we have an accurate picture of where we're at right now? If we're still trying to wrap up loose ends of contact tracing, if that's the case?
I think so. I mean, I think if we had more surveillance going on, we clearly we'd be picking up more cases, and that by itself might save some lives because we're catching people a little earlier in the older age range too. So our numbers would potentially look worse once we open up a little bit more surveillance. But if the contact tracing teams can do what they're supposed to do in the long run, that's gonna help us. I just don't have a lot of confidence that they're getting to all of the positive cases in a timely manner, and that hurts us in terms of understanding what's happening in the community, where these cases are, where the clusters might be. But that's just the reality. I think it's been like that for the last month or longer. We just have not been able to contact trace effectively, and that really does hurt how well we can keep this under control. I mean, I think if we had a very robust contact tracing system, I think this surge would have been blunted by significantly. And that's the other side of this. It's like we're spending all these resources in certain areas, and if we in turn spend those on testing and contact tracing, a robust system, I think we really could have blunted this wave, and that also is instructive for the future. We want to get out of this cycle, and I think that the way to do that is to augment those aspects of our epidemic response.
You said spending money in other areas. What do you think about all these lawsuits now that are being filed and petitions in the Superior Court regarding quarantine?
Well, it's interesting that it looks like they're more procedural than anything else. I think that the courts have made it clear. Again, I haven't read them in any great detail, but it sounds like the courts have made it clear that they think it's okay in a public health emergency to quarantine people, but they don't think that the process was correct, and that's important. We need to follow the process. If it allows for us to do something like that, the correct process needs to be followed. And it's unfortunate that it's going to just generate a lot of time, paperwork, money, and all for something that maybe just could have been some paperwork that could have been followed a little
definitely
bit, a little bit better.
preventive. A little preventive maintenance with your paperwork. I mean, with Linda DeNorsi, remember she was like, I can't come on your show because I got to go to court.
Yeah.
And they just like never followed up on it, and now here we are, Doc, there's a comment here. Dr. Lombard, when all this is done, can you use your methodology to forecast the GovGuam budget?
I'll tweak the numbers and see what I can.
Yeah, good luck with that. We'll talk to you next year. Doc, so your forecast for the next week, not too promising as far as the COVID-19 stats then.
Yeah, it's predicting 9 deaths next week. So don't be surprised. It's sad, and I think that we need to acknowledge our deaths. We need to acknowledge and celebrate the lives of people that are passing. We don't want to become numb to the deaths. I think when that happens, then we lose a little bit of ourselves, and so I think you see that in other places, and the deaths just become a meaningless number. But that also happens when the numbers just get too high. You just can't wrap your arms around deaths when they become too many. And thankfully we're not at that point, but we're really close to it happening. I mean, when you start saying 15 deaths a week, and then if it's 1 death, 2 deaths a week, it actually is more meaningful. It's a known psychological phenomenon that happens when you go from one is more impactful than 10, because we sort of more relate to that one on a personal level. But when so I think it's important that we do continue to to recognize these deaths and treat each one as for what it is. It's not unexpected though, based on the numbers that we've had, and these predictions are from the numbers that we saw 2 to 3 weeks ago. Remember, because it takes on average 3 weeks from symptoms to a fatality. So I'm looking back and doing the calculations of people's ages from 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Thanks, Doc. So I guess that's a maybe on the GovGuam budget thing then.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Okay. The
Stay
offer's there.
safe.
Yeah, stay safe, Doc. Hey, Dr.
All right,
Peter
take care, guys.
Lombard.
Bye-bye.
Wash your hands. 7:05. We'll keep it in the KUAM News Zoom room, where we'll also keep it coming with the white coats. Dr. Hoa Wen from the PAG, the Physicians Advisory Group. We know they had their Thursday night meeting. So spill the beans, Doc. Good morning.
Morning.
There's no bean to be spilled, guys.
Come
Good
on.
morning.
Come on. Okay, bye. See you.
See you later.
Anyway, we have a relatively short meeting, but it's very good. The numbers seem to go down, still trending a little bit downward, but more stable now in the 30 every day. We wish it get lower, and hospitalization is also trend downward. We lost some people, but at least we don't have a lot of new admissions. So I think this morning we stay at 40 in the hospital right now. So that's the lowest number we have in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and only 8 in the event. Before this thing over, we'll probably lose a few more people, but at least it's, the rate of a new admission is coming down, and we keep our finger crossed that's the way it is. So we talk a lot about how to move forward, because we stand still in peak hole 1 now for quite a few weeks already. So and the number that we have right now is comfortable, but we need to improve and get it lower. And the most important we have right now to move forward, even this surge or the future future search is that we really have to look at the isolation, the contact tracing, because if we going to have someone that turn positive, we really like to come up with some metric that we can measure how long does it take for the public health isolation team to start to contact the patient. It's very important to Chima set a goal in less than 5 hours of positive findings. So we're going to ask public health to report metrics probably every week to make sure that we know that the isolation contact tracing is not behind. We know they're behind, because there's a huge surge and the process of hiring contact tracer and other extra staff to man the isolation contact tracing is I don't know, it's complicated its own ways, but we need to kind of beef that up, because this is the only way that we keep ourselves from have a recurring situation we have right now. So that's we're gonna ask for some hard number, and we're gonna ask some metrics to do the for the isolation contact tracing. Let's see what percentage people we contact on time. I think the goal of less than 1 day, 24 hours is a reality that we have to really push. So that's what we talked about. And
you said,
let's see if public health can present us number.
You said, Dr. Hoa, that Uchima said the goal is 5 hours. Do you know, did he say on average how long it is currently?
We got a comment that a lady is in a household with a known positive says public health took 8 days to contact her.
Yeah, that's we don't have the number now, guys. I mean, we really, it's that's something we ask really. Once you have a positive finding on a patient, and either at public health lab or DLS lab or at the private clinic, we want to know what happened that positive. Someone, because we fax everything to one number, and we just wonder what happened when we fax and the number land on someone's fax machine. Where does it go from there? The most important thing is isolation. That's what public health need to get on it, get the phone, talk to the patient right away. That's the initiation of the contact right there. The contact tracing will take a day or two is okay, but at least the first few hours that you find out you're positive, someone need to contact the patient right away. I think that's something very important for us to move forward from PCO 1 to PCO 2, because that's the most important things. But yes, you're correct. There's quite a few patients that we noticed that after 3-4 days that no one even make attempt to contact them yet from public health. So but in order for us to move forward, there's a matrix that they have to present to the PAC or to the governor that, hey, we have 32 positive. We're going to contact the 32 positive within 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever. They need to present those data for us, so that way we know that, hey, we have an adequate isolation team, adequate quarantine team, and a contact tracing team. All those teams need to put together, and they need to report those numbers for us to feel comfortable to move forward.
Doc, can you talk about?
So obviously it's an issue. So because you guys are talking about it, and you're talking about how and Nuchima is saying that the goal is 5 hours. So I would think that the PAG would know how far behind they are in terms of how many days. And so how many people are on this isolation team that it's a responsibility to call and let people know that there's a positive?
Yeah, that's what we tried to find out.
He didn't have the answer?
Right now we have no idea.
Chima didn't have an answer?
The number, how many isolation staff. We're going to ask them, and we got that's we have to give them some time to give us an answer, but we really expect them to give an answer on how many staff on the isolation team, how many staff on the contact tracing, the quarantine team, the investigation team. So those numbers need to be out there. You know, if we are short of staff, then it's time to hire. You know, I know that because the number go up so fast, naturally everyone's going to be behind. But to be behind and identify that you need help and ask for help is important.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get those numbers to correlate with the current situation that we have. Like I say, in order for us to go forward, it's very important. You know, those 32 positive, I tell you that we have yesterday, those 32 should be someone should call them already, and that's the goal.
Right, and I think that's interesting, Doug, because I feel like our reaction and our response to the virus is not at a level that maybe is appropriate for the outbreak and the widespread transmission of the virus. It's more of like what public health can handle, right? So instead of doing the mass testing, which is a key trigger in moving from PCOR to PCOR, we said, we can't do the mass testing because we got backlog. So now we're only going to test 200 people on a random weekend in Humatic. And then we're also seeing with the daily testing, we only tested 175 people yesterday. So to me, it seems like we've tailored our response to a manageable workload for public health. And I'm just not sure, and we'll ask public health from a containment standpoint, is that adequate to, do what we got to do to starve this virus? I mean, I understand we don't want to get drowned in too much work, but at the same time, it's like if the governor has this transfer authority and all this power from this health emergency, X-ray vision, superpowers thing, then why are we moving more personnel to make sure that we can do things like test a bunch of people like we need to, or, contact trace? We just got another comment in here. Lady says after day 5, no contact from public health. They finally responded after multiple calls on, I want to say, what does this say here? On day 12. Yeah, so again, we're hearing that public health's just in over their heads.
It's just where, if you don't isolate the positive right away, there's a chance of transmission to other people. So it's so important, at the clinic level, we tell people that, hey, the one you're positive, please stay home, isolate yourself, and public health will contact you for the day or two. We tell people that, but it's very important that they have a call within 24 hours. I tell you, this is so important because some people would like to be moved to an isolation facility because the household good is too many people in there. It's not adequate for them to isolate themselves. So if any delay within a day or two, potentially the whole family will get infected. So it's important for them to do contact right away.
Just for clarification, so the isolation team, this is the team that contacts people after they test positive and let them know that they are positive and tell them to isolate? Is this?
Yeah, that's the first move. It's basically they need to call the patient.
That's the isolation team.
Yeah, that's isolation team. They have to contact the patient first and kind of talk to the patient. Get some demographic, how many people in the family, you need to be moving out the family, your house or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's important, and then the contact tracing will come after that, and the investigation team will come after that.
So how can we expect this COVID app alert to work if we're telling people that they're positive 12 days later?
The guys, what the app does is that the Guam COVID app does is that, let's say you're positive, okay?
But if I'm finding out 8 to 10, 12 days later.
No. It's listen a second. If let's say you find out you're positive, let's say I tell you you're positive, right? Mm-hmm. So you go to contact public health. They do what they do. They give you a code. You put inside your phone. You put that code on into your phone, and immediately it sends out on this signal to the people that come in contact with you instantly. If you spend 15 minutes around you and less than 6 feet, those people in the last 2 weeks will have a ping on their phone say, you've been coming in close contact with someone positive. So that kind of bypass the call, the contact tracing. So if I be close to you and my phone ping, my phone would tell you, hey, you've been in close contact with someone positive. This instruction you need to do, call public health, call your private clinic or whatever. They give you instruction there. So it cut down the time that the contact tracing, because, contact tracing might take several days behind, but that app was cut down the time a lot, so by the time public health contact you 3-4 days later, maybe the phone ping you right away already, 3-4 days ago. So it's important to have that apps in your phone in order for you to know that you come close to somebody before the contact tracing call you.
Right. But it doesn't seem like it's going to work if you don't find out, if the isolation team isn't calling you until 8-12 days later. Right? If the isolation team is...
So Sabrina, you can, if let's say that I tell you positive, rather than wait for someone to isolation to call you, you can call public health, say I'm positive. What I do with my phone now. So you can initiate that a lot faster than some isolation person will call you on your phone. You know what I mean? It's kind of help quite a bit if they do that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that isolation team will not be able to contact you within 24 hours. That's the goal.
Was the governor, did she participate in your PAG meeting last night?
Not last night. We tried to get rid of, we spent less than an hour last night because on Tuesday we spent way too long and everyone's really tired on Tuesday. So last night when we tried, so we're going to be less than 1 hour, guys. We're going to go home and take a break. Mm-hmm. So no, we didn't ask her to join her last night, but no, I briefed her this morning, what we talked about last night. Mm-hmm. And we're going to ask public health to really provide some and going forward to see if we can get some matrix from them just to make sure that the metric will tell us, hey, can we safely go forward? Do you have enough manpower? And it's not Guam alone. So not to say it's Guam have a problem. I think every place in the country face the same thing. It's just that we just need to kind of identify the deficit and really fix it and try to move forward, because it's going to happen again, guys. This is not going to be the last one. And if we have a very good isolation, contact tracing, quarantine, and case investigation, we won't be back in this same peak hole one again.
Mm-hmm. So what about quarantine? Did you guys talk about that? I mean, there's several petitions that were filed in the Superior Court.
Yeah, just like Dr. Lombard said, the judge really, this is his own procedure, as basically public health need to make sure the paperwork is correct. The quarantine worked really well. I think we have from day one, I think 105 plus case in the quarantine that they identified. So that helped a lot. The island surge can only happen if you have an influx of positive case in community, and that's when you travel. No, this thing just does not go around by itself. Mm-hmm. You have to bring it in. So the quarantine work, and there's no doubt about it. We will try to shorten that up from 14 days to 7 days, but that has to be planned out appropriately. We don't want to rush that because we don't want to have the recurrent mistake that we did in the past. So, but it's coming. People would like to go home faster, and we're going to try our best to do that. Like I said, there's another app that, another website Alert that people have to sign in, the Sarah Alert, that we want to roll out, and that will be required for people to sign up if they want to do home quarantine after 7 days Q factor.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody from the PAC say, Governor, leave public health alone? Don't lay off anybody, furlough anybody?
I think, I don't know. I'm not a politician, and public health need to provide all the help that they can get
Exactly.
for this pandemic. I mean, that's bottom line. You can't cut public health in any way. The governor, the legislature, no one should cut the public health. No one should cut GMH. Those are the most important entity that we can that we need in this pandemic. You cannot cut any one of those two.
All right, thanks, Doc. Any final words as we head into the weekend?
We are doing better, and thank you for people to do that. We cannot get down to 100, down to 30 without community help. So again, we just ask people to be patient with the stay-home order, and again, just try not to visit your relative so much, because that's the exposure, especially again on the high comorbidity and on the dialysis patient. I keep saying that because that population right there very fragile. So please protect them.
Thank you, Doc.
All right, thanks, Doc.
Okay.
Be safe.
Okay, and get your flu shots.
Right on.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. We are.
Okay, guys.
Get your flu shots available at AMC.
You guys come by anytime. We give it to you. Okay, priority.
Okay.
So
Thank you. All right.
Thanks,
You heard
Doc.
it here on tape. See you, Doc.
You're welcome.
Okay. 7:22. Let's just real quick, a couple minutes with Miss Maria, the Guam Election Commission. We have public health standing by in the Zoom room, and Ed Uggan and the state epidemiologist. Hi, Miss Maria.
Hi.
Good morning. So you guys got the green light to proceed with the general election.
In-office voting starting tomorrow.
Yes, we are.
Okay, let's run through the hours, what people need to know before coming down and voting.
Right.
So tomorrow, Saturday, September 19th, would be the first day of in-office absentee voting. Starting at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, that would be Manamku hour. 10, and then we'll run from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Here at the GCIC building, we've gotten lots of calls for appointments. We still have appointment slots for tomorrow. We do have curbside voting for those that are medically challenged, persons with disabilities, and for the Manamko too, who can't make it up the elevator. And then from Monday through Friday, our schedule is 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock here at GCIC on the 3rd floor. Call us at 477-9791 for the to make an appointment. It takes a little bit, Bree and Chris, because we will pre-fill your application for absentee ballot. So, but because you take a few minutes with us on the telephone, when you come to vote absentee, it will be much faster for you through when you come to vote. We will go out to villages, and the first village we'll hit is Malesu on September 26th. And please remember that if you're not registered to vote yet, when you come in for in-office absentee voting, you can register to vote and vote at the same time.
And so everything pretty much is kind of the same from when we came out there for the demonstration for the primary. Bring your own pen, mandatory mask, etc., right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, everything is the same. One more thing that we had talked about with public health is that we will have a shield or a sneeze guard upstairs on the 3rd floor at Station 1, I believe.
Okay.
And we can cross over.
And yes, our sample ballots will go up if they're not up yet today. And you can cross over. You will be voting for Besides what you saw in the primary election, you will also be voting for the Guam Education Board. We have 10 candidates there. You have to select only 6. We have the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. There are 5 candidates. Choose only 2. And then we have the judicial retention question. We have we have a justice and 3 judges on the judicial retention question.
Do you have on the judges?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the info about which judges are letting out all the criminals on felony release?
I do.
No, Miss Maria. No, you don't. Okay. I'm just saying I would like to vote for judge retention. I want to know which of the judges are letting out all the criminals on felony release. But that info is not on the ballot.
Miss.
No,
Okay.
that info's not on the ballot.
We do have a question here. Actually, a good question. Will curbside voting allow multiple voters in a vehicle to vote at once?
Yes, and that's why it's important if you're coming in one car and you need to vote curbside, call our office and give us information for all the voters in the car.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we've got to move on to public health. Chris is showing me the finger.
Oh, no, I'm not. I mean, if you want to rap, you can rap. I'm just saying that. I just have a fear that Annette and Dr. Ann are going to be like, oh, sorry, not 7:20, bye. So,
yes. So, Sabrina and Chris, I hope to see you down here soon.
I don't know, because last time I voted, you guys destroyed my ballot.
Yes, actually, that was done yesterday.
Thanks.
I went and I actually followed the van with all the ballots, and I actually supervised the destruction of all the ballots.
Wow.
All right. How many people are registered for tomorrow?
I heard a number close to 300.
Wow.
Okay.
Damn.
You guys have like.
Sabrina, and so we're going to keep closer tabs with how many people called to make appointments, how many people made the appointments, and how many people registered and voted at the same time.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Maria.
Hamzumas, have a good Friday. It's beautiful from here.
It is, Miss Maria, and thank you for going to work and Zooming with us this morning.
It's Masi to you all.
Okay. That's wash your hands. 7:29.
More information, just go to gec.guam.gov.
And they also have an Instagram.
Yes.
Okay. 7:29. Let's get right back into the KUAM News Zoom room where we sanitize everything in between guests, just as a matter of protocol. So we get in Annette Elgin from Public Health's contact tracing squad, the A team of the contact tracers, and we have Dr. Ann, the territorial epidemiologist, on. Thanks, Annette. I know your ears probably were burning because we were talking a lot about the contact tracing.
Yeah, that's seems to be the hot topic these past few weeks.
It does. Good morning, Dr. Ann.
Morning.
Annette, we love in the background again. That's Fiji, right?
I'm sorry?
Your background is Fiji?
Yes.
Yeah, sweet. Let's just get right into it. We're curious about the results and the testing that has been conducted. Who's getting tested for COVID-19 this week? Who has been tested, and who's popping positive?
Well, we continue to test the identified close contacts, be it at home or work or community contacts. Then we also are testing individuals who are symptomatic. They may not know that they're exposed, or they don't believe they're exposed, but they are exhibiting symptoms. And so based on recommendation to go and be checked. And again, some of these individuals too are trying to rule out, is it flu or is it COVID? So we are, wanting individuals who are exhibiting symptoms to seek medical care. Don't wait, especially if it's getting worse, to, seek medical guidance and evaluation, and they can determine whether, to give you both the flu test and the COVID test. And then again, we were planning to have a community-based testing tomorrow, Humatic, weather permitting. And so that is open to the public. However, as JIC announced the other day, it's actually already closed to others because of limit of 200 people, and that's open to whoever pre-registered through the Humatic Mayor's office.
Can we just go back into the testing that was done by Public Health Lab this week, and I guess for the last few weeks, has been testing that's coming from identified close contacts with positive cases. But are you able to tell us, and I know the HIPAA and all that, but more specifically, where these cases are coming from? Is it from community spread? I know that we had seen a construction barracks with it was like 50-some positive.
He said it was a significant cluster.
Right. And then we're also hearing things about, I got a lot of friends who go over at Victory Chapel, and they're telling me that they had a large number of people from that church test positive, but we haven't heard any information from you guys about that.
Well, we've been testing any and all identified contacts, be it at home or at work or community. And again, our naming of establishment was something that we've worked to improve on, because again, there's been a lot of concern about, well, if we out people, we're causing them to be blacklisted and shaming them. And that's not the case. When establishments are collaborating with us and working with us, they're helping us to identify close contacts. We work with that, and we want to continue that partnership. We don't want to have doors closed on us when we need their assistance. And so, again, the identified people are notified of their exposure. We work with them to make sure they're quarantined, and if they need testing. And so, be it a religious group, a private company, or at the home, and that's what we're seeing. And there's a lot of household contacts who, to be expected, are becoming positive because they're at higher risk. They're at home in close quarters, their hours of exposure to each other. And so unfortunately, a lot of our contacts are household members. And then, we're seeing that where, okay, these people didn't know they were exposed, that they're positive. They go to their respective work, and then now we're dealing with their coworkers. And so, for us to name every establishment organization, I know I said it in a previous interview with y'all.
Right.
Act like it's everywhere. Assume anyone is positive, and just to take the necessary precautions.
Yeah. Well, I just think some people may think that's not right, because we do out people that have like rat infestations and things like that, and or when the Division of Environmental Health goes out and does their COVID-19 inspections, and they say areas like what church was it?
Right.
Calgary, one of those churches that they had people not wearing masks, they weren't abiding by social distancing, etc. So
it's a little inconsistent.
Just kind of
right. And we're working on that, and this is the issue I would like people to understand is, just because an establishment has a positive case, it doesn't mean it was because of that establishment. It could have been that the person was exposed at home or at a party or something outside of the establishment.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be their occupation and where they work. So that's why we have to be very careful if we want to out someone. And again, that's something that we sought legal counsel from. And that's something that our department is working on to have a policy moving forward that, okay, if there's a large cluster or if the establishment or organization is uncooperative, then that's maybe, we're going to put your name out there, because you're not helping us identify the contacts who public health needs to identify and let them know that they've possibly been exposed, to quarantine and to coordinate testing. So that's what our policy that we are putting in black and white, thanks to the legal counsel guidance that we received moving forward. And again, so that's where, we've had numerous rumors, people calling in saying, you know what, this business has a case, these over here, and to find out they didn't. And so can you imagine if we named those establishments and it was a false rumor? And again, so we always have to do our background check. A lot of our investigations too are preliminary. People are calling us before we even have the results, and that's what we need to verify, because public health will only act on verified, accurate information. And so that's where we're trying to balance, all these false rumors going out there, naming businesses and everything, and to find out, no, they didn't have a case.
Right. But on that note, I just feel like it reaches a point where if, and I understand if the businesses are being helpful or whatever, but just from a transparency standpoint, I feel like if a construction company has more than 50 positives, then we deserve to know what construction company it is. I feel like if a church has, dozens of positive cases, and I feel like we just need to know. I mean, we saw it early on. You guys outed Iglesia de Cristo. We outed Calvary Chapel most recently. So yeah, I get that. You don't want to tell us everything, and you can't. But at the same time, I'm not saying if a business has one positive or if a church has two positives, then we need to know. I'm just saying at a point where you got 50 positives in a construction barracks, and the public has a right to know. Who's the legal counsel for public health?
We've gone through the governor's office as well as through the attorney general's office for guidance.
Okay.
For any legal opinion. Yes.
Yeah. So, Bree. Hi, Dr. Ann.
Hello.
Did you catch Dr. Uggan's interview?
Dr. When?
Dr. Jolene Uggan. She came on earlier this week.
No, I didn't. I was driving.
Right. She had talked about the second wave, and we kind of touched base on this in our last interview. But she had said that it appears to her that this second wave and the, for lack of a better word, the potency of the virus in this second go around, it's a lot more alarming the first time. She's saying that we have patients who are really, really sick in the Guam Memorial Hospital. From just, I guess, an epidemiologist standpoint, what can you say about that? Are we getting it worse the second time around, or is it just more widespread?
Okay, the issue the second time around is there's a lot more cases of local transmission. And what we're seeing is that 84% of the deaths, total deaths, we've had 30, 84% have occurred in the past 6.5 weeks. It's because of this surge and the sheer numbers. You can go on our dashboard and look at the actual numbers. We've seen, I don't know the exact percentage but you can see it on the graph. It's because of the sheer numbers of cases and local transmission, all these large gatherings and so on. And so, yes, we have a whole bunch of susceptible people who are older, people with underlying medical conditions, and they end up in the hospital and they might be there for weeks. And then, there's a lag time maybe from when they were infected until when they die. But we certainly don't want to see the deaths, because these are like innocent bystanders, elderly people who are sick, kids with neurodevelopmental disabilities, etc., people with chronic diseases. It's just the result of this surge, the sheer numbers from opening up and people not playing by the rules, large gatherings. And yes, we're still investigating. And going back to the issue of 50 positives at a barracks, does it really matter as long as they're all confined to the barracks and they're not going anywhere till they get better? That's what they're doing in the States. They're saying, no, if we have a college dorm full of sick kids, we have a COVID dorm and we put them there. We don't send them home to infect their families. So there are mitigation practices for those kinds of situations. And
but if it doesn't matter, then why can't people know?
I'm not in charge of naming of names. We're having discussions about that and trying to develop a policy if it's a certain number of cases where, again, Chris just talked about, he said if it's one or two at a workplace, do we really need to know? Probably not. If it's 5 or more, we're still developing a policy on that.
Right. And that, without getting into specifics or violating the all sacred HIPAA, what can you tell us specifically about the things that you're hearing with the spread of this virus, just to kind of clue people in, even after 6 months under this lockdown, clue people in, give them more information and arm them with some truth about how this virus is getting spread from what you and your team are hearing when you do your contact trace investigations. Because we had a nurse yesterday, Alexa, she shared a meal with someone, something as innocent as that. So, again, I think it's important for people to know how this virus is being spread so they can kind of take that information with them throughout the day.
It's spread through the air. It's airborne respiratory. And so that's why the challenging thing about this virus, it's new. And also we're seeing a lot of people who are asymptomatic, who are they feel perfectly fine. They don't know they're exposed. They don't think they have COVID. They have no signs or symptoms of being sick. And so they're going around, be it at work, going out, the parties, the gatherings, the restaurants when we were open in Peak or 3. And so going back to, they're not wearing their mask, they're not practicing the 6 feet spacing. And so they're spreading it unknowingly. And then there's individuals who know they're sick, they have symptoms, but they're still going out. And so again, it's the social distancing, the wearing the mask, washing your hands. And so again, it goes back to, it's here on Guam. It's communities. It's spread through the community. It's here. It's local transmission. So act as if anybody is sick, even if they don't look sick. Stay home if you're sick, and practice the social distancing measures, the infection control measures, so that we can help prevent the further spread and prevent those individuals with weakened immune system or the elderly to be exposed. Because again, we've seen that too. As Dr. Ann mentioned, it's the dorms back in the States, the college. So we have a lot of younger, healthy people going out, doing their normal day-to-day work or partying or, eating out or get-togethers, and then bringing it home to a family member who is either elderly or has a medical condition. And then they're the ones who are dealing with the complications. And so again, it's here on Guam. Assume anywhere you can get it, and just practice the necessary precautions of social distancing, wearing your mask, staying home if you're sick, and washing your hands.
Annette,
You want the statistics?
Yeah.
65% are symptomatic of the cases. So that's 2/3 are symptomatic and another 1/3 asymptomatic. And in terms of the contacts, household contacts comprise 42% of the known epi-links. 46% are community contacts, 8% workplace, and only 4% healthcare. So it's in the households and the community. That's where the known contacts,
Right.
which we know about a little over half. We don't have the details on everybody yet.
And that, when we started this PCOR 1 lockdown, I remember and we always talk to you guys, the number we hear is, it takes a couple weeks for today to hit, right? But we've been in this lockdown for 4 weeks. And so when you talk about what you just said, people are eating out and they're gathering and all that stuff, are you talking about before the PCOR 1 lockdown, or are you saying that those types of things are still happening in the middle of this stay-at-home order?
So we still hear from our investigators and contact tracers, oh yeah, we went over to our family member's house. They're not in the same household, they're family, but they went to a different house. Oh yeah, we had a little get-together. So again, and I know Dr. Wen had mentioned this before, and Dr. Manglona, it's really our family that is exposing each other. And again, it's hard because it's our culture, right? We're so family oriented, but a family going out to go shopping, do you really need everyone to go out and possibly be exposed? Just send the one person who can get the groceries or whatever necessities and come back home. It's get-togethers. Oh yeah, it's my relative's house right next door. We go back and forth between each other. They're not the same household, but they were exposing each other unknowingly. And so now we see 2 different households having COVID spread within their respective homes. And so that's what we're seeing. Unfortunately, it's the work. And that's why to out certain businesses is not correct. The businesses have really stepped up. We appreciate their support. We need their support. We couldn't do it without them. And so we've seen it where unfortunately it spread at the home. They brought it to their work unknowingly because they were perfectly fine, and they spread it to their coworkers. And then those coworkers took it to their homes and spread it within their household contacts. And so that's why it's just so hard, because both asymptomatic, you just got to act like you have it. If you're interacting with someone who's asymptomatic, act as if they may be. And then those who are symptomatic, we're hearing, oh yeah, I went to work and the person next to me was coughing just as worse as me. Both of you went to work still sick. Yet we've been saying for months, stay home if you're sick.
Right.
We've been saying for months, wear your mask, social distancing, and as much as possible, reduce the spread by complying with what we've been putting out there. And unfortunately, yes, the stay-at-home order continues to be extended week by week, because we're still seeing cases. Thankfully, the number of cases have gone down compared to last week. We're seeing our curve go down, but it's still, we're hitting double digits. And so that's something that we're working to continue to reduce the number of new cases that we are seeing.
Are they going down because there's not as many tests though?
Because it looks like the positivity rate's still pretty up there. So I'm curious, what do we pay attention to? lower number of positives, like, you know, Bree said, we're getting 30 something, we had 100 some at some point, or do we pay attention to the test positivity rate? Because you're right, we're doing 30, we got 30 some positives, but we only tested 400 people.
Well, that is just in a combination of locations, but we're still testing throughout with all our military and private partners. We're testing the targeted high-risk individuals, and we're still encouraging those who have symptoms to go seek medical care and be tested as needed. And so we're still testing over 1,000 in a week's time. And so our numbers are going down. And so for us, it's the number of cases going down is a good sign. The concern is, again, still the overwhelming numbers that are being hospitalized, the amount of recent deaths that we've had. So that's where, again, even Dr. Melania said it before, don't look at the number of positive, look at the hospitalization rate.
Right.
Fatality rate.
And the number of deaths.
Yeah.
Because what we're really looking for is seeing a sustained decrease in the numbers. It has to be over several weeks. It can't just be, oh, it's down this week. We have to wait a week or two to really see.
Right.
So then why would we have a lockdown and a stay-home order for a week and not 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever how many weeks you need to be able to see the numbers or to show that it's working? It just seems that, you know, if we were going to do the lockdown, maybe it should have been for 2 weeks, you know, from the beginning, or 3 weeks from the beginning of this, instead of every week we're like waiting to find out if we're going to be in another lockdown and not really knowing, is this working?
It's tedious.
It is harder for the governor, and that's something that I know she looks at the PAG and public health and JMA. And so the week to week is something that it's for her, you know, it was asked before, should we do every 2 weeks? Recommendation is let's go week by week, because we're looking at the data while we're also looking at the hospitalization information. And so that's something that to guide her on a week by week basis, so that it's as real-time accurate data that she can have, and she can make the decision. Does she need to extend another week, or can she slowly open up by the end of the following week?
And that, you know, just going back to the positives, the contact tracing, right? So for example, the 30 some cases that we had yesterday, are those related to positive cases that you guys started investigating before the PCOR 1 lockdown, or is it all fresh? You know what I'm trying to say?
These are new. So there are some that it's a continuation from before PCOR 1, that unfortunately it's gone from one family member, then the following week it's another family member who started to be symptomatic. And so you have a mix of both brand new cases, or they've been linked to previous cases for more than a week to 2 weeks.
And some get tested at the hospital. They're sick, they go into the hospital, they get tested there as well. And not just GMH, GRMC, also Navy.
How concerning is it that we're seeing more people show up at the hospital's door when they're already at death's door? You know, we've seen so many of these cases where they're getting rushed in, they're testing positive, they're dying. So, I mean, when we talk to Dr. Wen, people are waiting too long.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
and they're not seeking care. For example, if they have a chronic condition and they just feel unwell, it's like, maybe you should go get seen, especially if you have a chronic condition or you're elderly. Maybe you should get checked out. That's a concern, not just here, it's nationwide. The people are staying at home, they're scared when maybe they should get seen, particularly people with chronic conditions and the elderly who are more vulnerable.
I'm wondering if I could just get clarification on this, and maybe if there's even a difference, because we've seen the language kind of change in the Joint Information Center releases on people that have passed away with comorbidities, and now it's people have passed away with underlying health conditions. Is there a difference?
No. An underlying condition means you have a chronic condition. Let me explain. For example, if somebody has a cardiac arrest, that's the immediate cause of death, and they also have COVID, and on top of it, diabetes, those are contributing causes of death that are also underlying conditions. I think they're just using that language. Underlying medical conditions mainly means chronic diseases, but it also can include kids with neurodevelopmental disabilities, that kind of thing.
Dr.
You
Ann.
can have acute respiratory failure, and that's your immediate cause of death. And then you have also COVID and hypertension and cardiovascular disease. So
is it interchangeable to use comorbidities and underlying health conditions?
yes.
Okay. All right. Just one. And then also, just what does this? If you could just clarify what this means, when someone comes in and they test positive during initial workup.
Well, when they go to the hospital or ER.
Initial workup. So
when they're getting checked in, basically.
Yeah, GMH is doing that to see if anyone is positive,
Right.
because they don't want to mix the positive COVID with non-positive at the hospital. So they're trying to make sure they're screening anyone coming in, especially if they're not a known positive. Then they need to do an initial test to determine their status for COVID.
Right. And that's anybody who comes in through the ER or is admitted to GMH. They do the temperature check, blood pressure, all that.
Yes.
COVID test. Right. Dr. Ann, you've mentioned neurocongenitive conditions twice during this interview, and I'm assuming you're alluding to one of the fatalities that we've seen. What can you share with us that you know about?
We're working on examining the data. The problem is there's always a lag before we get a death certificate, but we do know that all of them have one or more underlying conditions or chronic diseases. The main one seems to be diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And we just saw a couple death certificates with morbid obesity on it. That's not on the case listing, but it's on the death certificate. So we're going to know more once we get all the death certificates, but we do know older age, underlying conditions contribute to the risk for severe outcomes and death. And that's, again, back to the 84% of our deaths have occurred in the past 6 weeks because of the surge. So we're back to the same issue of we need to protect people. These are innocent bystanders, elderly people with chronic conditions.
Doc, you're talking about the elderly, right? But we had the death of a 10-year-old boy over the weekend, brought to Naval Hospital. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, there's been a few cases that are under age 50, but the vast majority are over age 50.
What can you tell us about the 10-year-old boy?
I don't have the details right now, but I think he had underlying conditions, including asthma, I believe. So lung diseases are also more a risk, but I haven't really seen that. I thought we'd see more smokers, people with COPD, but it's mostly diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity. Those are the main risks for severe outcomes and death, morbid obesity.
Wow.
And those are related to diabetes, yes.
Yeah.
That's nationwide.
Annette and Dr. Ann, so when we talk about diabetes, that's the first comorbidity you threw out. We've heard a lot about targeted testing of dialysis patients. Is that going to happen?
Yes.
Where are we at with that?
Well, that's part of the targeted testing, but right now it also depends on the establishment and their infection control policies. We haven't really seen any, except there was a case earlier in March or April that might have been associated with I forget. It wasn't the dialysis center per se. It was someone I don't know if it was a healthcare worker. Annette might remember the details on that, but there are plans to do serial testing of healthcare workers and the dialysis centers, and serology testing when we start rolling that out as well. I'd love to test every single healthcare worker with a serology test, because many of them have been positive, but a lot have not. And it might be that they have the antibodies. So we don't know. Dentists, that was Stephanie's idea. We'd like to test the dentists, see if they have antibodies. And we're planning to do targeted testing of first responders as well for serology.
When are you guys looking to start that?
Probably next month. We're still trying to roll it out, but we have the tests and they are validating it. And that's planned hopefully next month. Okay. And that's just for surveillance. It doesn't give us any results if somebody's infected. It just tells us if people have the antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19.
Just I guess for Annette, how robust is the contact tracing team or contact tracing efforts?
We've grown, we continue to grow over the course of this outbreak response. You know, in the beginning, we had a team of 6 investigators and 6 contact tracers, all within the Department of Public Health, and specifically in our Bureau of Communicable Disease Control. Then in about May, we grew by pulling from other areas in our division as well as our department. And now we have approximately 20 investigators, and then we have about 24 contact tracers. And this is across public health. We have DYA support as well. And then we've had other agencies like GPA, Port Authority of Guam, and I've been remiss in stating GMH. From the beginning, GMH2 has stepped up to help with contact tracing within their agency. And so they've stepped up and taken care and helped us with contact tracing. So that's GMH. And then now we've had that course with UOG, with the UC San Francisco that came. There were approximately 85 individuals who took the course. And so now we're working with UOG to discuss how we can do like a pilot project with them. Take some individuals from that training and stand them up as a contact tracing team to help augment us here at the department. And so that we've had other individuals who've taken the course online, and you know they're standing by if needed to be pulled in, or they help on as needed basis. And then we've had several volunteers offering their assistance, and so the pool is growing, and so that's something that we appreciate everyone's support, both within the government and our external partners. And then Department of Labor too is pushing. There was that announcement a few days ago that they're trying to hire, individuals for assistance for contact tracing. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we've been working with them over the past few months to continue to add to our team.
Okay. Did you have anything else? No. Okay. Well, I guess we're pretty much done here, but want to thank you guys for coming on. And just in case, you guys aren't planning on retiring or anything, right? Or
no,
Dr. Han?
If only, right? If only I'm old enough to retire.
Hey, just want to make sure.
Any curveballs?
You gotta ask, because Dr. Jana, that was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Wait. Okay. Let me ask. Do you want to retire?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay.
Right,
Stay
Get your
safe.
flu shots.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Like everyone said, get your flu shots.
That's
Shots,
on the
shots,
to-do
shots.
list.
Take care.
All right.
Stay
Take
safe.
care.
Okay. See you. Thank you. 7:59 again. Annette Uggan and Dr. Ann Pobutsky of the Department of Public Health and Social Services, where they are anticipating pneumatic testing. Bree.
Oh yeah, pneumatic testing is this weekend, but it's already capped. Well, only 200 people could get tested, and they've already reached that 200 threshold. So if you are lucky enough, or we're lucky enough to make the list, it is tomorrow morning at the pneumatic mayor's office. I don't have the hours. I want to say it's 9 to 12, but I could be getting it confused with the in-office voting that's getting underway.
They said weather permitting, so.
Oh.
You didn't hear she was like, oh, yeah, weather permitting. So I'm going to try and get pneumatic mayor Johnny Canata on the line a little bit.
I know he was really trying to fill it up with pneumatic residents,
Right.
Because he said 200 just isn't enough, because he's got like over 1,000 residents in pneumatic.
Yeah.
And so he was holding it out till today, actually, because Friday, to have everybody that he could from pneumatic get tested and then open it up to everybody else. But yeah.
Interesting comment here from Fausto, a regular listener to the link. Numbers are still the same. Only thing that went down is the testing capabilities. They are sugarcoating it to look like it's going down. I tried to ask the governor that question at the last press conference, but it kind of got railroaded. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. They're not testing. It's clearly not testing as many people as they were. It's 8 o'clock. We're KUAM FM in Hagåtña, Guam. This is The Breeze, 93.9. Thank you to our viewers on KUAM TV for watching on this Friday. Whoa, Betness! Yeah! Good morning and goodbye. Check us out on the KUAM News Facebook Live feed where it's 8:01. Rear Admiral John Manoni from Joint Region Marianas is holding on the line, and he's coming up next here on The Link. It's The Breeze 93.9, proudly brought to you by Calvo Enterprises, IT&E, Thrive Coalition, and First Hawaiian Bank. Good morning.
Make it through.
Your life moves quickly, so you need a card that keeps up with you. Tap and go with our contactless debit cards. Just open a checking account at First Hawaiian Bank.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
If you plan on leaving your house, don't forget your face mask. Along with hand washing and social distancing, wearing face masks can drastically reduce your risk of infection. Many people who catch COVID-19 can be contagious before they even start showing symptoms. The more people who use face masks, the less the virus can be transmitted and fewer individuals are exposed. When we both wear face masks, I protect you, you protect me, and we are both safe.
We have the power to improve the schools our kids learn in, the roads we drive on, the healthcare we receive, and the opportunities for more jobs. By responding to the 2020 census of Guam, we can uplift future generations by providing them with the resources they need to grow as a community. Together, we can make a difference. Respond today.
When the world feels stuck at home, there are people who would love nothing more than to have a home. Disasters don't stop during a pandemic. Together, we continue to give help and hope to those in need. Help now at redcross.org.
We got your 6.
At 6 a.m. with The Link on Breeze 93.9 FM. Bree and I connect you with all the latest news and information you need to know to start your day.
Then check back with Guam's news leader at 6 p.m. for the day's top headlines with KUAM News Primetime.
From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and everything else in between with KUAM Digital, we got your 6. Hey, good morning. Good morning to our viewers on our KUAM News Facebook Live feed. Blast it.
Won't you come over, love, so I can show you love? I promise I've got enough to give you
Jay?
all that you
Yeah,
need, baby.
Coming up, of course, like we are like now past the top of the hour and everything like that. We got a jam-packed show for you guys. We still got, in this second half of our 4-hour show, we got a lot of really good interviews. We're going to get you up to speed on everything that is planned. But, Chris, you were saying, and you've actually booked time with Rear Admiral John Manoni. He's been referred to as an officer and a gentleman. I know you said that before, kind of making reference to the 80s movie. I kind of wonder, because, I used to co-host the movie podcast that we did here, and this is completely tangential. So what we're
As usual, yep.
Yeah, what we're about to discuss with the Rear Admiral, and we thank him for giving us some of his time. But he's mentioned before when the governor was doing her Zoom press conferences that his background apparently is as a naval aviator. So I always wondered, what his feelings are on Top Gun 2 being pushed back. Again, this really has very little weight on what's going on with the state of the world, but because you're a big Top Gun guy.
Okay, Jay. So you'd want me to bring on the Admiral so you can ask him about what he thinks about Top Gun.
I was curious about people in that profession, how they feel, they feel about Top Gun.
We're just gonna stop everything with the COVID, Admiral. We're just gonna put on our naval aviator hat, which I'm sure you're wearing all the time.
The jacket.
And the jacket, Jay. What kind of jacket do you want to see the Admiral in?
No, I was just curious about
Tell us, what kind of jacket?
Thoughts on Top Gun 2 being pushed back and Top Gun 2 in general. One of the more meaningful movies of
Admiral,
my childhood.
Are you there, Admiral?
I am, and I'm laughing at the conversation.
I don't know if you can, if that's above your pay grade or what, but are you allowed to disclose your thoughts on Top Gun, the sequel?
Being pushed back, and even the movie at all.
So if I may, real quick, the Army has the movie Firebirds, the Nicolas Cage movie, if you ever watched that. The Coast Guard's got The Guardian with Kevin Costner.
Right.
Air Force, their touchstone movie, obviously, is Iron Eagle.
Iron Eagle.
And the Navy has the greatest recruiting film of all time, Top Gun and Top Gun 2. So I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to see when it comes out. And my son, who's at the Naval Academy, is also pumped to see it. I will wear my mirrored sunglasses and my leather flight jacket to the first screening of that movie.
So Admiral, sir, I just got to ask you before Chris proceeds with this interview. Were you more, when you watched that movie, I'm sure, as in your youth, I would assume, were you more Team Maverick or Team Iceman?
I was Team F-14 Tomcat. It didn't matter. They were all cool back in the 80s.
Great answer.
What a safe answer. Are you done, Jay? Anything else?
Thank
you
sir.
Sure?
Yeah.
You sure?
Aye, sir.
Okay, all right. You sure you don't have any Blue Angels questions? Sorry about that, Admiral. That's my friend Jay. I can't really take him anywhere. He's awkward.
Oh, it's fine.
I'm sure.
Happier times, definitely.
Right on. And let's just get right into it, Admiral. We kind of wanted to start with, if we could, COVID-19 update for Naval Base Guam and anything else that falls under your jurisdiction at Joint Region Marianas.
Sure. So, like the community here, starting back in early to mid-August, we similarly saw a very rapid rise in active cases within the fence lines and then within the greater DOD community. And when I say that, I include not just the Navy, it's the Guard, it's the retirees, it's the veterans, it's the Coast Guard and the Army units, it's our dependents and our civilian contractors. And so we peaked probably about August 29th with, out of that entire enterprise, roughly 264 cases. As of yesterday at 1200, which is when we timestamp our reports, we were down to 54 cases across that enterprise. So we're seeing a lot of people graduate through our protocols, which include isolation and quarantine and testing. And we're seeing a very slower rate of people who are testing positive. That's also borne out by 0 hospitalizations at that point. We did have a few throughout this latest peak, as well as a slowdown in people coming into our influenza-like illness clinic for screening at Naval Hospital. About midway through this latest spike, we were seeing about 40 to 50 personnel a day every day. We're down to the 10 to 15 personnel every day that come through that ILI clinic for screening. So I think we're on the backside of our latest peak.
I did want to follow up. Did you have any information on the investigation and the personnel that tested positive? I believe it was in Tinian, because the release we got from the CNMI was that before this group went out to Tinian, they had tested negative. But when they arrived to Tinian, one of them had tested positive.
Yeah, so we did thank you for that question. We did a full deep dive into that, and we still don't understand how that happened. These folks tested negative before they deployed to Guam from Japan. Mm-hmm. They then boarded military aircraft, came to Guam, sat in a restricted movement, we call it ROM, but it's ROM sequester, where they sat in their own rooms, in their own barracks, in a tight group for 14 days, tested negative again, sat for 3 more days, and then boarded a military transport direct to Tinian, and then one tested positive on arrival. To date, that individual has not shown any symptoms. I believe all 13 of the team, that's I think a team of 11 plus 2 close contacts, all have tested negative and are back at work. So we're not sure how that happened. It could have been a false positive. It could have been something he contracted by touching a door handle, but we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I had a question, Admiral. I got a friend who lives by the Oka area, asking me about. You okay?
Sorry.
Yeah. Asking me about people here for Valiant Shield. I know that I wasn't sure what the orders were for them, but they're saying that they see groups of these service members walking to and from the Sheraton. I'm assuming maybe they're going over to wherever. Can you just clarify what are the orders for military service members here for Valiant Shield? Go ahead.
So I think we have lots of different groups here on Guam. The Valiant Shield people that we see that are actually participating in exercises, that are boots on ground on Guam, that totals 890 people. We have thousands of people who are DOD or DOD affiliated who live here on the island. So he may not be seeing Valiant Shield participants. They may be off a submarine that's home ported here, or some other unit that's here for something else. But so for the 890 folks that are on Guam supporting Valiant Shield, that are living in 2 hotels, their orders are basically home to work and then back to home. So these folks, we worked really hard to make sure that they were COVID-free before they came to the island. And then, like I just alluded to, the Seabees, they came on military transport. We're trying to keep them clean because they're operational units. So that goes along our lines of, protect the force, protect the population, don't be a vector for this virus, and then continue our mission. We're really trying hard to protect this force so that they continue their mission. So I hope that helps to answer that question for you.
So if I'm one of the 890, I just have to stay in my hotel room?
You stay in your hotel room, or you go to work and then come back to your hotel room. There's no, hitting up Jollibee drive-through or anything like that. They certainly shouldn't be walking around. The folks over by the Sheraton are likely not Valiant Shield participants.
Okay. And then, Admiral, just clarify, so if I'm supposed to stay in the room and only go back and forth to work, am I allowed to use the hotel facilities if I'm a member of the Valiant Shield exercise, like, for example, the swimming pool? Because I got a picture of a bunch of guys at the swimming pool. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's typically okay. They're allowed to do PT. As long as they comply with the wear the mask, physically distance, practice good hygiene, and they're staying in their units, kind of like when we see a ship come into port and we allow them to go down to the beach. As long as they stay within their unit that we know is clean, I'm not going to legislate who gets to go down to the laundry to pick up their stuff, that they can't go in 2s or 3s or stuff like that.
I wanted to just give you the opportunity and just to explain to people why, for example, the governor will issue an order, right, where we have a stay-at-home order, we have a lockdown. So, and this is the first instance, there was a video that was going around about the USS Ronald Reagan when it came in, and people weren't wearing masks, and apparently they didn't have to. They were going to the beach on base, and then we had this other order about no construction. There was a directive that construction will cease, but yet the military continued with their construction projects. So can you just kind of explain to everybody why some people may say, gosh, it seems like there's, a double standard or
we hear you say a lot, Admiral, the one Guam approach. And I mean, it just doesn't really jive when, the one Guam out here can't do construction, but the one Guam in there does it anyway.
So, that's a great question. And I know it looks a certain way depending on where you sit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking to, be offended is the best way to say it, you're going to view it in its most negative light. Whereas if you're looking at it from where I sit, I will have a completely different view. That doesn't mean either of those are invalid. It's just the way it is. So let's talk about the Ronald Reagan, and we'll talk about all the ships that come in. So we're on our 16th safe haven port visit. In your own homes with your family, and you have this tight group, and that your family is COVID negative, do you wear masks at home? And chances are people don't. Chances are people do practice some sort of physical distance with their own family. They do kind of get after each other for good hygiene, but they're not wearing masks because they know everybody within that unit, that family unit, is COVID negative. The film that was taken by Ronald Reagan, we're still looking into whether there was a violation of federal law by taking that film in a restricted area. But those sailors had been at sea for 100 days and were COVID negative, tested extensively, no symptoms. So think of them as, 4,800 of your best friends that you know exactly their physical status, living all under the same roof. So why would I put them in masks? The second question was with respect to, local executive orders and ordinances. I talk to the governor all the time. I mean, all the time, whether it's during the week or the weekends. My staff is directly engaged with the governor on all of these things. And we, try to mirror as best we can the local ordinances, understanding that we have different mission sets, different populations, and we are beholden to different constituencies. My chain of command, unfortunately or not, does not go through the local government. It goes through the federal government up to the president. And so I have to respond and adhere to executive orders through Secretary of Defense to me. But I also have to try and do what's right by the local community. So there's some things that I can do, which, ratcheting down on HB Con levels to become more restrictive when the governor is more restrictive. Try to mirror that as best I can. Close the beaches on the bases, even though I don't really have to. We did that because the governor has done that. Our beaches on Naval Base Guam and on Anderson are closed, period, end of story right now, not open for physical fitness. So we're more restrictive than the governor and the government right here. But when it comes to stuff like military construction or critical infrastructure, critical to national security, there's executive orders that say what we can and cannot do. So, again, you could look at it as a double standard or whatever you want, but you got to understand the context of these decisions.
That's why we asked you, so you could explain.
Yeah. I appreciate the question. It's a good question.
Can you tell us anything else about, the Ronald Reagan was here, and then I've seen all kinds of media reports that there were, it didn't say how many, but there was a sailor or sailors that had tested positive for COVID.
Right, and so when you see
after they left Guam,
when you see the backlash that we had, Admiral, when that video was going around, people were saying, oh, and then you guys' response was like, oh, they were in the bubble, it's COVID free, and then we come to find out that they got the virus on the Reagan. So it's kind of like, I mean, were they? What happened?
That's a great question, and there is a very big effort right now by both this headquarters, Naval Base Guam, the strike group, which is, I believe, CSG 5, and 7th Fleet, to try and understand how this happened. So, in spite of all the protections we put in place, and I remind you that we had 15 other ships, to include the Nimitz strike group, come in and follow those same protocols. Well, we actually were even more restrictive in terms of distancing and bubbles and who provided security for what with Ronald Reagan, how this happened and what the vector was onto that ship. And it could be something as simple as a contractor from the local community who maybe was asymptomatic positive, went and serviced a vending machine on the pier, and then when they went and sanitized those vending machines, they missed the spot, and Sailor X went and touched the vending machine. Or it could have been something that somebody who transferred to the ship was asymptomatic positive, and it just got passed around. So we really don't know, and there's no clear smoking gun, to use a cliche, of where this came from, that we know it came from this vector, but we are fully digging into that because we want to know, and we want to make sure that we have our procedures tight to continue to allow these ships to come in for safe haven liberty, because you probably know when you're on a ship for 100 days straight, it gets a little crazy.
I also wanted to ask about, we spoke with Lillian Posadas earlier this week, and she had mentioned that you had toured the Guam Memorial Hospital, because we've been asking her about, the DOD team that's here helping GMH with the hospitalizations, because they're in dire need, obviously, of help. And so can you provide us, I guess, JRM's role in all of this? Is it because you're representing DOD?
So, I think it's my job as the senior military official out here, regardless if people are in my chain of command or work for me or not, to go out and see how people are being employed and what's the actual true story on the ground. It's something that's worked for me for 30 years in the military. I got to go see what's going on. I can't just take email reports or phone calls from people. So I went over to see how our DOD personnel were being employed, and to talk to Lillian and Dr. Uggan over there to understand, what their challenges are. I've done the same thing with Naval Hospital, as well as I have not gone over to GRMC. Mm-hmm. But as you know, when TR was here, I was doing that same thing, touring the different quarantine facilities to try and understand what was happening. It is a big challenge when you only have 3 hospitals on the island, and you don't have another state next door that you can rely on for additional help. That we're 7 hours of flight time away from Hawaii and 25 hours of flight time away from the east coast of the United States. So it is a challenge. So I'm always very concerned about hospital capacity and ensuring that we have capacity to support these outbreaks. So I hope that helps answer why I went over there and looked around and what I'm thinking. I think the team that's here, while not certainly as proficient as Dr. Uggan and her team, who have been dealing with this since March, on the front lines, their efforts are very well appreciated by the GMH staff, and Lillian and the team have them working hard over there right now.
Right.
So they're fully engaged.
So you were satisfied with what you saw during your site visit?
I'm never satisfied when we don't have enough staff and we don't have enough resources. So I'm always going to continue to try and fight for those resources. But I also understand that, the budget is not unlimited, and we are fighting a global pandemic where medical professionals across the world are being stretched thin and worn down to the nub, to include DOD. So I'm going to continue to advocate and fight for resources for Guam. As you know, we have a standby hospital sitting down at Santa Rita. Should we need the bed space? Right now we don't. What we need are staff and providers. But I also am a realist and understand that everybody is stretched pretty thin right now.
Do you have any update on the closure
of the Visitor Control Center? Yeah, we got a couple comments on that, Admiral.
Sure, they're just cleaning. They're working through to make sure that space is safe. They're doing obviously contact tracing to try and understand how the Visitor Control Center employee became positive, was infected, and then make sure that we work with public health on that to make sure that it doesn't, blow up. And obviously, as the VCC is a pretty high traffic area, we don't want to endanger the community any more than put them under any more risk than we already all are at this point. So I think we're about a day or two from opening that thing back up.
And
I think with VCC though, you guys contact tracing would be pretty easy because you guys keep a log, right? You know what time people are coming in, who's coming in, and
yeah, I don't like going down to the VCC because I feel like I'm getting, the 10th degree when I walk in there, with you got to log in, you got to do the temperature check, you're getting, queried about your past history, and I might just be coming in to ask a question, and I got to go through this whole process to get in the front door. So I'll tell you, Captain Shali, who's acting right now just for a couple more days, and his team at Naval Base Guam, when they did a quick investigation, they don't see any bad behavior on the employees' part, and they don't see any breakdown in protocols at the VCC. That it seems like everybody was doing everything right, but this virus, the nature of it is so insidious and so contagious that you don't know you got exposed until you pop positive on some test or you display some symptoms.
Right. So in the meantime, Admiral, what's the procedure for people who are trying to get in to the base that would normally go to the VCC to do so?
Yeah, I got to hold off on that. We're standing by on that. I don't think we've caused any sort of issues with, or I certainly have not heard of any issues with people who absolutely had to get on base were denied access.
Okay.
One of the things at the Guam Memorial Hospital, they, have suffered a significant shortage of staff because of healthcare workers that have doctors, nurses that have tested positive at GMH. What about over at a Naval Hospital?
Yeah, throughout the DoD enterprise, despite our best efforts to keep these bubbles clean, whether it's on Naval Base Guam, up at Anderson, at Naval Hospital, we've seen positives within those fence lines. And it really all started early to mid-August. I think, by my numbers, we were at 0 cases within DoD on August 8th, and within that entire enterprise. And then by the 29th, we were at 264 cases. So Naval Hospital has seen some positive cases within their building. But one of the things that Captain Scott over there has done and did right away was start to reduce non-essential services so that she could build capacity or hold capacity in reserve should she see more positives within her hospital, and to ensure that she had enough providers on hand to treat patients appropriately. We have that luxury at Naval Hospital for a couple of reasons. One, I think, are the population that goes there, although we do have retirees and veterans that go to Naval Hospital who are maybe a little bit older, we have a little bit younger population that frequents that hospital. And then the second part is, we don't have to worry about generating revenue. So we have a different problem set than GMH or GRMC does. Yeah, you can't really equate how we do business within the Naval Hospital to GMH. They have, I think, a much more difficult problem set.
Mm-hmm. I want to just go back to Valiant Shield. I know we talked a little bit about what the question that Chris asked, but I wanted to just ask in general, how has Valiant Shield been going?
So no news is good news. We do keep close tabs on how the training is going. If I may do a little bit of a public service announcement on Valiant Shield, because I think people are rightly asking the question, why are we still doing training during COVID-19? And in its inception, in its original form, Valiant Shield was a massive U.S.-only exercise that was going to be conducted here in Guam, the CNMI, the water surrounding, linking Japan, Hawaii, Alaska, CONUS here, virtually and in real time. And, we have an obligation as the U.S. military to provide for the defense of Guam and the Marianas out here, as well as all work with our allies and partners for this concept of a free and open Indo-Pacific. You can't do that. You can't meet that obligation, that Title X responsibility, unless you train. But in light of COVID, JRM, working with Pacific Fleet, who is the exercise, the lead, scaled things back and put in procedures in place that would minimize any threat of COVID transmission to the islands, because we understand about hospital capacity and the concerns of the local population. So, we're doing high-end training at sea and from Anderson Air Force Base. The training from my conversations with the strike group commanders is going well and is very, very appropriate and needed. But we're also being very careful to protect our service members, not be that vector to the community, and keep continuing that mission. So I hope that answers that question.
Admiral, we had gotten a couple, and I think, was there something nationally on Frank Cable coronavirus?
I think Nestor may have done a story.
Right. So what can you tell us about the Frank Cable and COVID-19, Admiral?
So Frank Cable is a ship that's home ported here. So I need people to think of Frank Cable as just like Naval Hospital or the 36th Mission Support Group at Anderson Air Force Base. So home ported here, part of this community, and they had an outbreak on the ship. That ship is 1,000 people. So when I look at the numbers, and I'm not going to go into specific numbers within that unit, but when I look at the numbers associated with Frank Cable as opposed to the numbers associated with 36 Mission Support Group or USS Asheville or JRM. Their numbers were in line with everything else that we saw during this recent spike. And their numbers were rolled up in that peak of 264 that I told you that was DOD-wide here on Guam. So, you know, there was a lot of stories about it and a lot of concern, but from my view, my seat, it was the ship and the crew stepped through it appropriately and got themselves healthy again.
So it's everyone has been cleared?
As far as whether they have any positive cases on board, I'm going to take a quick look. And I think they're still working through a few cases. But again, I ask you to remember that, you know, it's a 1,000-person command.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask about, on the subject of the training, because I think I did a story, I want to say last year about sonar. There was a training you guys had done, and then we subsequently saw a whale washed up, and they believed it could have been linked to sonar. But that being said, I know a bunch of senators are today going to be adopting Resolution 365, which aims to urge the U.S. Navy to cease its use of active sonar that harms marine mammals in identified habitats. A comment on that, Admiral?
So, you know, I've read the resolution and had my team look at it, and Pacific Fleet also has looked at it. And I believe the resolution asks us to do things that we're already doing. They talk about standoff distances, which we do. They talk about, in that resolution, hey, we want the same procedures that are used in Hawaii and SoCal to be used out here. Those procedures aren't site-specific to like Hawaii or SoCal op area. Those are fleet, Navy-wide procedures. So we do ships that are operating around the Marianas operate in exactly the same manner as they do in SoCal or in the Hawaii operations area. You know, there is no desire on the United States Navy's part to harm marine mammals. That's just not how we roll. When we say we want to be good stewards of the environment, we work really hard and expend a lot of resources to be good stewards of the environment. So I am grateful for the Senator's concerns about the environment, about marine mammals. And people got to know that we have those same concerns, and we put a lot of time and effort into making sure we don't make things worse. So that would be my comment on that. I hope that's helpful to you.
Do you have any comments on Secretary Esper's visit with the Japanese Prime Minister and the Marines relocation?
So, you know, I wasn't in that meeting. I had some time with Minister Kono as well as Secretary Esper, not only with Governor Leon Guerrero and Secretary Esper, but also some time after that. And both him and Minister Kono are very appreciative of the support that the people of Guam have given not only U.S. DOD, but also our very close allies out of Japan. And, you know, they view things, I believe, the same way I think all of us do with respect to Guam and the CNMI, is that this is a strategic point on the globe. And there's a lot of focus on this area, not only from U.S. Department of Defense, but also our close allies in the region, but also our adversaries. And we have to keep our eye on the ball out here that it's not a function of whether DOD's here or not, whether Guam and the CNMI is strategic. It's strategic because of where it is in the world. And, you know, we just have to make sure we're doing things right for this region, because Guam and the CNMI are key to that concept of a free and open Indo-Pacific.
Admiral, I wanted to ask, while we're talking about this realignment, and we had the SHPO on. I think we got to get SHPO on again. But I know that he had initiated the Stipulation 13 process, and we've seen very significant archaeological discoveries up at the build-up construction that's going on up north. So can you tell us from your viewpoint and where you guys are sitting at the table, where we are in terms of that 45-day halt and where we are in terms of a kind of allaying a lot of the very valid and real concerns that our people have about how these sites and how our ancestors that have been bulldozed in some cases, how they're being treated?
So with respect to the current discovery, what we believe now is an actual burial site.
Right.
I just sent a letter back earlier this week to the SHPO, which aligns how we want to proceed with the SHPO and the governor's desires to preserve in place and to memorialize that site. So we're going to do some things with respect to that specific site that I think will treat the people who are buried there with the dignity and respect that they deserve. I made some comments when I first got here that the days of DOD being, I think I said something like Yosemite Sam on a bulldozer just plowing things under, those days are long gone. And I still hold to that comment. When we're up there trying to execute the National Defense Strategy and the Program of Record for the Defense Posture Realignment Initiative, which is the Marine relocation in this case for Guam, when we're trying to execute that, we're very careful on how we do business. And when we see something or find something that we don't understand, we do a pause. We stop work. We fence off that area, and we get the best experts that we have on island and off island to try and understand what we're seeing, and then determine in conjunction with Gov Guam through the SHPO how best to proceed. And it's not hey, DOD is just going to do this, unilaterally. It's a conversation and a consultative process. So I think our relationship with the SHPO is very good. We don't always see eye to eye, but no good relationship always agrees 100% of the time. We try to work through things together, and that we try to be the best stewards of those cultural resources, those historical areas, and then obviously the environment that we can be.
Right. So, Admiral, it kind of sounds like you were alluding to a determination about preserving these sites and these burials in place. Is that what's going to happen, or is that just what's being discussed?
With respect to, again, this is specifically the burial site that we recently found. It is DOD's position that we're going to likely preserve in place and then memorialize and adjust our plans, our build plans, to accommodate that preserve in place. So, it's not a hard line, hey, we got a plan to build something here. We don't care what we find. So we're always evaluating and adjusting and then evolving our thinking. I think the entirety of the Guam enterprise, so all of us, both DOD, the local government, and the population, is evolving their thinking on what happened in the past on that northern plateau. And call it what you will, one of the benefits of this buildup is that resources are being applied to the tune of, I think, more than $100 million in environmental mitigations over the past 4 years, to understanding what's going on or what went on in the past. We may not have understood those things had we not done this buildup. That's not to imply that that what we do is right every day. We got to figure out this together so that we can execute the program of record.
Just one more question on this, Admiral. Sure. So, in hearing about the discovery that was made, it's a significant ancient burial that we've only really read about in historical documents, So that being said, what is the likelihood that we would be able to see any type of photographic evidence of the site? Or, I mean, just because, like, for example, my kids, you know, I told them about this thing that they discovered up there, and I mean, we just kind of want to see. And obviously we're limited in how we just can't even go to the site. I mean, first of all, so because I really think it would go a long way with the community to kind of, instead of us just talking about this as some kind of abstract concept, to really give us some evidence that, hey, we told you guys how we're treating this site. Here, take a look at it. This is what we're looking at. Are we able to get that type of visual confirmation while at the same time mitigating all the whatever force protection and national security issues that I'm thinking are obviously in place up at that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before it was overcome by current events, there was the intent of, and by current events I mean COVID. Right. There's the intent to work through more open access for these types of things. So the Marine Corps base, Camp Blas, when that is fully implemented, we're working through a visitor center at the front where you can see artifacts on display as well as see photographs of what was found on the base. There's the potentiality for organized tours to the base. Obviously, this burial site will at that point probably be preserved via cairns of some sort of memorialization, because you don't want to leave it out in the elements, but there'll be photographs of that as well as placards that discuss what was there. DOD has funded, it's been in the news here recently, this cultural repository to help preserve not only stuff we find on federal land, but things that Gov Guam and local construction companies find external to the fence lines. And obviously there's concerns of who's going to maintain that and how it's going to be funded, but I think the first step is the fact that there's money appropriated to actually have that cultural repository on island, and then things done the right way so that we don't damage these artifacts. So the intent is to continue to try and get the message out and show people what we're finding. And then you did allude to the national security type concerns. More of a concern for me right now, and though we have taken some senators and the governor up to see this current burial site that we've been talking about in person, more concerning than the national security concerns are just the safety concerns. Because even when I'm up there and looking at the different projects that are going on, I'm concerned for my personal safety because there's a lot of heavy equipment moving around. So we're going to work through that, and we owe the public more transparency as best we can on what we're finding and what we're seeing. And it's my commitment to do that moving forward.
Yeah, I think what he's really asking is, can we, the media, go and get video on our own and get a look at what's happening?
Yeah, that's something we got to work with the SHPO, because there's some cultural sensitivities there that I don't necessarily know about or understand. So we'd have to work through that. I think that is a media day is an appropriate request. I just don't know if we should do it. So we'll look at that.
Okay. Yeah, we're willing to do whatever we need to do to be able to get on there and get a look at what's happening. Before we do let you go, though, I wanted to get an update because we have gotten releases in the past about Naval exchange.
Oh, it's still open.
And were there any COVID cases, any employees there that tested positive?
Absolutely. There were, just like again, across all the bases, across all the different units on these bases, there were positive cases within the Navy exchange. And like these, all these organizations, we mitigated that. We shortened up some hours so we can do better cleaning. We actually did consider closing at one point the exchange in the commissary for a couple days to sort it out, but we decided against that because, one, I thought that would be an overreaction, and two, and send the wrong message, and two, we weren't seeing transmission from employees to patrons. We were seeing transmission among employees, and that transmission started back off base at home. So there was no real need to close it. So they're still open, and my intent is for them to stay open unless we see that we're actually endangering employees or endangering patrons.
All right. Is there any final comments, any final message you'd like to give?
I appreciate the time. I mean, I think we've been on the air right now for 45 minutes, and
Right.
that's thank you guys for these questions are great. And I am a consumer of the local media also, so I see the questions that people are posing, and a lot of the questions are because we're still not able to communicate as best we possibly can. So I will continue to try and do that. I will continue to try and give the facts as I see them so that people can form their opinions based on those facts, whatever those opinions may be. And I commit to still continuing to work with local leadership here to do the best we can both inside and outside the fence lines. It's never perfect, but we're going to try to do the best we possibly can.
I definitely appreciate your time, Admiral. And the door is always open. You got the number. You got our contacts. Anytime you want to jump on, we'd be more than willing and glad to have you. There was a comment in here. It's nice to see the Admiral doesn't limit you guys to one question and one follow-up question.
Yeah, it's more of a stream of consciousness.
Right, yeah. Some might say word vomit, but...
let's next time, let's talk about happier things. Let's talk about
Top Gun. You want to talk more about Top Gun? Hey. Yeah, we'll bring Jason in and we'll do
friendly sports.
Right.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
Admiral.
Thanks, Admiral. And also a shout out to Lieutenant Commander Rick Moore for helping link us up. So thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah.
He's good people. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Admiral. See you. Wash your hands. Okay. 8:54. We got to take a short break. We're coming back with elected Attorney General Levin Camacho next on the link. It is The Breeze, 93.9. Good morning.
For DIY projects.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
Your life moves quickly, so you need a card that keeps up with you. Tap and go with our contactless debit cards. Just open a checking account at First Hawaiian Bank.
Hafa Day, my name is Zena Cruz Vecina, a registered nurse with the Department of Public Health and Social Services. COVID-19 continues to be a very real threat to Guam. Wearing an appropriate cloth face covering in public is a simple and important way you can protect yourself and others on our island. During a pandemic, no single action will stop the spread of the virus. Wash your hands often with soap and water and stay 6 feet away from others. Prevention saves lives. For more information, please call 311 or check out our website at www.dphss.guam.gov.
Small businesses are an important foundation in our island's growing economy. They provide essential goods and services to our community while preserving local traditions and creating new job opportunities. Your responses to the 2020 Census of Guam will help small businesses receive the information they need to thrive for years to come. Respond today. Together, we can make a difference.
These are some of the signs that someone is thinking about suicide. Talking about wanting to die, excessive guilt or shame, and feeling like a burden to others, feeling empty, hopeless, trapped, or having no reason to live, feeling extremely sad, anxious, agitated, or full of rage with unbearable emotional or physical pain. Other signs include changing behavior such as making a plan or researching ways to die, withdrawing from friends or saying goodbye, giving away important items or making a will, taking dangerous risks such as driving extremely fast, displaying extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping more or less, and using drugs or alcohol more often. If you or someone you know is showing these warning signs, get help as soon as possible. Call Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center's crisis hotline at 647-8833 or 4.
When the world feels stuck at home, there are people who would love nothing more than to have a home. Disasters don't stop during a pandemic. Together, we continue to give help and hope to those in need. Help now at redcross.org.
If you plan on leaving your house, don't forget your face mask. Along with hand washing and social distancing, wearing face masks can drastically reduce your risk of infection. Many people who catch COVID-19 can be contagious before they even start showing symptoms. The more people who use face masks, the less the virus can be transmitted and fewer individuals are exposed. When we both wear face masks, I protect you, you protect me, and we are both safe.
Are you biased? Jesse biased? Okay, Jay.
I was gonna say, hey, shout out to Jesse's son, Christian, to Trench.
Right.
Does a lot of really, really cool stuff. He's an educator, you know, he's an exercise enthusiast and everything, and he's been promoting a positive message in, you know, just like his dad has done for many, many years. So shout out to Christian.
It's 9 o'clock. Or KUAM, FM, and Agani Guam. Biba Betness. Biba! It's Friday! The show proudly brought to you by First Hawaiian Bank, Cowboy Enterprises, and IT&E. We'll just jump right back into the KUAM News Zoom room. I hope it's adequately sanitized for you, Attorney General. We kind of run through in between guests, and we got the guys with the wands, and they wear the astronaut outfit.
It smells very clean here, Chris.
Yeah, I love the smell of Clorox in the morning. So, AG, we wanted to bring you on. There's just a whole bunch of stuff to catch up on. But first, ORDOT dump filing. What can you tell us about that? I know it came out of your office yesterday afternoon.
So we've actually taken the case to the Supreme Court of the United States now. We filed our petition yesterday. We're asking the court to review district courts or Court of Appeals out of D.C., their decision that Guam cannot pursue its claims because we filed too late. So, you know, all we're asking for in that case is for the Navy to pay for its share of the $160 million that it's cost to clean up and to create LADs on. So I guess just it's the first time for my office that since I've been Attorney General that we've taken a case of environmental issues up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Damn, we should ask the Admiral about
later
that.
this year. And we'll find out whether or not the court accepts it, probably early 2021.
Are we asking them to pay the full $160 million?
No, we're asking actually if we survive this, there'll be an evidentiary hearing where we would figure out what their contribution would be based on when they ran the dump and when it was turned over to the government of Guam. But as of right now, they haven't contributed a penny to the closing and the cleanup over there.
Wow. So is there a ballpark figure, AG, that you guys think the Navy should fork up?
It's going to be, that's where the meat of the argument is going to be, just kind of figuring out, we pointed out that they ran the dump for quite a long time. They didn't line it. They dumped chemicals in there for decades. And, it's going to be a little bit difficult to figure out, where their pollution stops and where the government of Guam may have started. But I think just based on the chemicals that they found there, it's not like your Roundup that you're buying from Home Depot. It's pretty toxic stuff.
And it could be traced back to the military, right? Yeah.
Very realistically, yeah.
Yeah, and how confident are you that the U.S. Supreme Court will actually take this case?
We pointed out in our petition that there's actually a split in the circuits, and that's one of the factors that the Supreme Court considers when deciding whether or not to accept a case. So we do think that it would be appropriate for the Supreme Court. It's not just Guam that's going to be impacted by this. This is a national issue. And really the main question, and it's extremely technical and nerdy, but it was a consent decree that we entered into under the Clean Water Act. And the court said, well, when you entered into the Clean Water Act consent, you were waiving, or your time to file a lawsuit under another law, CERCLA, started to run. So that's really the legal issue that we've brought before the Supreme Court to try to make a final decision for all the courts across the country.
We'll just run through the other, because I know the PFAS thing that where are we? Can you just give us a status on all the other environmental cases that you're pursuing?
PFAS litigation, there's a status here. They have status hearings. There have been, I think, over a dozen depositions that have been taken. We're in the discovery phase, and at that point, the court's going to decide which cases will proceed to trial, or at least to motions first. So Guam is one of maybe a dozen jurisdictions, states, or territories that have sued the manufacturers of that AFFF foam that's used for firefighting. And we're going to kind of try to get in line and see when we're going to have our day in court. But that case is proceeding. We should know by either the end of this year or next year when we can expect a trial date, or at least some kind of dispositive motion hearing. It's interesting. You have the Admiral on, and I remember back in the day when programmatic agreements kind of been in the news. We filed a lawsuit maybe 2 weeks ago to preserve NEPA. And, just kind of bringing back all these memories. And Chris, you brought up, when are we going to get access to this? And I remember going to a programmatic agreement hearing back in 2011, and they had this billboard saying, you can request access to all these sites, but no one had ever done that list before. So we said, okay, we would now like to access all these areas. And, we went, I've never been to Fena before. They had a beautiful Laddystone set up there. But after that, they introduced a public access plan, but actually it made it more difficult to get access to a lot of these sites. So, I'm hoping that with Admiral Manoni do that and make it a little bit easier for folks to get out there and to see. Haputo is another example where most locals have never been there and seen. They have an amazing laddie array out there. They have probably the largest lusong I've ever seen in the back. And, I had an interest in seeing how the ancient Chamorros built their villages, and everything was a little bit unique. If you go to Halaan, they kind of built along the coastline. If you go to Haputo, they actually built like a U along the cliff line. So, there's just a lot of cool history. And I missed going on those hikes with Professor Bavakwa, but it was definitely an exciting time to get out there and to see stuff that you grow up on Guam and you don't realize it's out there in the jungle.
Right, and that's why I asked, and we'll get into that NEPA thing in a sec, AG, but I just wanted to share with you, I think it was last year, I had put in the request because, I flip channels, and there's that one channel, the propaganda, the military, where they just show all the military stuff, and they had this, again, it was this flag, hey, if you want to go and access any of the sites, call. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to go in and because they had put out some release, and that was a response to some criticism and how they were handling the buildup, but it was one of those, like, they responded to the criticism, and then they also said, like, hey, but we're also maintaining all these sites that you guys can come check out, and they named Fena. And so I actually really tried to gain access to Fena and to bring the camera so that I could say, hey, if they're saying they're taking care of it, let's show them and look at these, because I heard they're huge laddies up there. But our request was denied.
Maybe 4 feet.
Yeah, so we weren't able to.
One of the things that they changed, Chris, was that you can only go if you know someone who knows the way there. And of course, the only people who know the way there are folks who are in the military. At the time, Dave Lotz was very involved with our group and actually been to these sites. So he was able to lead our group. But that the one time we went out there, and I'll never forget this, we actually brought one of our friends' grandfathers who grew up in Fenna and who was moved out after World War II. And that was the first time he had been to like the river he grew up on since the war. And, he just sat there kind of off, and you could just tell it was a very emotional moment for him, but it kind of brings in Sumai too, right? They make that off, they're allowed to go to the cemetery once a year. So it was just one of those things where when you experience Guam history in that way, there's nothing quite like it. I can tell you have to walk up a pretty steep hill, and there are these gigantic laddie. There's no rocks around there, so they would have had to carry them somehow to the top of the mountain, and it overlooks the entire lake. So it was a very important person or very important things that happened up there. They're about the size of the Angel Santos Park, about the laddie from there. It's about the same size on the top of this mountain or hill. So
well, it sounds like you know the way, so we got to take a field trip. Real quick, AG, on the NEPA lawsuit, what can you tell us about that? And then we want to jump into the quarantine stuff.
Okay. So NEPA, there were proposed changes that would really limit public participation in these cases. It would also make it a much more difficult to challenge administrative decisions. So, we thought that really violated the spirit of NEPA. We were very fortunate when we sued the military the first time around to have Attorney Nick Yost, who was actually the head of the Council on Environmental Quality, and he was part of the initiative to enact NEPA back in the 70s. So he's come out very hard against these proposed changes and just agrees with the position that many, I think about 23 attorneys general from across the country have joined in the suit to stop the CEQ from basically gutting NEPA and allowing us to protect environment. I think environmental justice is another piece where they're taking out or they're amending cumulative impacts, which is very important for us in the Marianas because we have another exercise going on now. But they say, okay, just treat every project individually and don't look at the larger impacts that several projects that are going on in the same place would have. So those are the main issues that we had with the proposed changes.
And now to the meat of the sandwich, if you will. Why we really wanted to get you on.
I know, yeah. You let me talk about what you'd asked to talk about, and now we can get into what.
Right. No, I mean, it's interesting talk there, AG. So, Bree.
Yeah, if you could bring us up to speed on all these petitions that are now being filed regarding people in quarantine, saying that they feel like they're in prison, they're in jail, and their civil rights are being trampled on.
I do want to start by just recognizing all the public health folks that are at these quarantine sites that are managing it, all the National Guard folks that are there also responsible for handing out things every day. I know it's not easy, and I'm sure with the recent news, it's probably harder. You're probably getting folks that are more and more irate. This has just become a very divisive issue, and it's unfortunate. It's not just quarantine, but all the public health orders that are have just been hotly contested. And it's not just a Guam issue. This is something that's happening around the country. And I do want to acknowledge that this is not an ideal situation. And for those who are in quarantine and are having to stay for the 14 days, I'm sure it's not easy. But this is something that the governor and the Department of Public Health has decided that is necessary based on the data and the trends that they were seeing. And I just wanted to just start by explaining what our office's role in all of this is. Some folks think that we make the decision on who to quarantine, how to quarantine, where to quarantine. We are the legal advisors for public health. And we are advisory if we believe that there are issues with the process that don't comply with the law. We're going to step in and we will assist public health to the extent that we can. And we have been working with them very closely since these cases have started to come up. But to your comment, Sabrina, we've seen 4 or 5 petitions so far. There are hundreds of people that are in quarantine, that have been quarantined. And I'd say that the vast majority of folks are willing to. It's inconvenient, but that's just part of it. And if you allow me just to take a little bit of a tangent, I was reading my friend Julian Uggins. He wrote an article and he talked about, the legend of the fish that was eating Guam, right? And he talked about, the men, they couldn't do it. The women tied their hair together. And he has this line there, no offering was too small. And I understand this is very divisive nationally, but when you think about who we are as an island, who we are as a culture, I think back to that legend. And there are probably those on the side who are like, just let the fish run its course. It's only going to eat the central part of Guam, and we'll be okay, right? I live in Chico. Don't worry about me. But I think just culturally, most folks understand the real danger that we're in right now, the threat that we're seeing, and hopefully with the measures that we've taken, we'll be able to start. I see that the governor issued an executive order yesterday, relaxing a little bit more. So I'm hoping that we can continue to move in that direction. I do want to dispel this idea that quarantine itself is unconstitutional. That is absolutely false. We have a law that was passed that allows for public health to quarantine an individual without notice for up to 10 days. And after that 10-day period, we're required to go before a judge and to ask for additional time. That was enacted long before this started. So based on the science, and 14 days being the period that you need to make sure that someone isn't COVID positive and is not going to be spreading it. We have had to file one petition, maybe two petitions, to request that the court extend that 10-day period beyond. For the cases that have been filed recently, they are being argued as we speak, so I can't really talk too much about it. But I do want to share some of, I think, the confusion. So folks think that public health, they follow a process, they have processes. I encourage anyone who's going to be traveling or has family who's going to be traveling to make sure you have the most up-to-date guidance that has been issued by public health. Because what we're seeing is people coming to Guam who haven't read the guidance and who, as an example, will say, well, I believe I'm a critical worker and therefore I qualify for home quarantine. And that's not what the process says. There's a whole, you have to have a letter submitted by your employer to the Director of Public Health. The Director of Public Health will then pre-issue you a letter. And then when you get to the airport, that's when you're given the opportunity to quarantine at home as a critical worker. So, look at what the procedures are. And public health is not trying to violate anyone's constitutional rights. But if you don't like the outcome, that doesn't mean that it's illegal. It just means you don't like the outcome and you disagree with the decision.
There was something that Jackie Terlahi had said yesterday regarding legal representation, I believe, of right. People that are in quarantine. They have a right to legal representation. To be paid for by public health. Right? Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah. And asking why isn't the AG representing or providing this legal representation?
I think we're just in a day and age where sometimes the soundbite is more important than being accurate. And I'm not the auditor. I know he had some really choice words. I don't have this lexicon, to come out and to have Jason put together a nice headline for this. This will probably be very hard for him to come up with a headline for. What the law says is that the court shall appoint an attorney at the government's expense to someone who is being quarantined, and the court is being asked to review the quarantine conditions. It does not say the government is going to hire attorneys for anyone who wants to challenge their quarantine. That's not what the law says. So to the extent that our office should be filing cases on behalf, we, as a matter of law, represent the Department of Public Health in these proceedings. Again, if they are not following the law, we have to get them on the right path. But we're not required to represent the passengers in these types of cases, and to say that the law requires that is just flat out wrong.
What would you make? What would you make, AG, and we bring this up a lot, when Linda DeNorsi was the public health director? I know that she was going to court and doing what, according to her, she needed to do to ensure that these people were being quarantined and it met all the parameters of the quarantine law. The name of it's slipping my mind right now. But we didn't see that continue. We saw it a couple times, and that was one of the arguments that these attorneys are making, is that, yes, like you said, the government of Guam can quarantine people, but there's a whole procedure for it that they weren't following through with. I mean, something as simple as forgetting to do the paperwork. It looks like that's opened the door for a lot of these cases.
That's what happened, Chris, and I can tell you that is actually the first case that I argued as the Attorney General personally, was the very first petition to quarantine travelers from Manila when the governor issued the executive order on public health said we need to stop all flights from quarantine passengers from Manila. So that I were at that hearing with Linda, and after that hearing, we looked at the other laws. So under Chapter 3 of Title 10, there is a process for voluntary quarantine. And we told the director, you can give them the choice of either voluntarily quarantine, and if they do, we don't have to file a petition every 10 days. And we heard one case, they had talked about filing another. At that point, the court had actually appointed public defender in those cases, as was required by law. And I think most of them just said, we'll ride it out, 10 days, I got 4 more days, and then I can go on my way. And at that, and just 6 months is a long time in COVID-19 world, right? I mean, you think back to March and just where we're at, the panic, and you look at now with 40 cases yesterday. I mean, and to be asking to revert back. And I just want to point out, one of the judge issued a decision in the customs officer case last week, and she recognized that public health said we allowed residents to quarantine at home, and part of the reason why we've seen a surge is that they weren't following it. People were given the opportunity to quarantine at home, and they were going out, they were posting things on social media, they were out at bars. And again, I'm not an epidemiologist, but if you look at the trends and you look at the graphs, I mean, something happened. And if you look at the time frame when we started relaxing these restrictions, I don't think it's a coincidence, and you don't have to be a scientist to see when we started to relax things and when we started to see an uptick in cases. So at the end of the day, we do have to put a lot of faith in our public health officials that they're going to be looking at the data. They're going to be making the best try. And I'm just hoping that we can try to come together a little bit more and support the folks, because they're not doing this out of ill intent. I'm sure that everyone would rather not have to, would rather not have to be quarantining families if they could avoid it. And I'm hoping with the tests I've heard or seen stuff that there's emerging technology that we can start relaxing a little bit more, but we're just not there today.
Okay, G. So we're good. You think you're going to win the cases?
I mean, we'll see. I can't really comment on that, and we'll see what the judge has to say. But so far in the customs officer case, she just recognized the need right now to quarantine. In that case, he didn't walk out of the hotel. I mean, the judge ordered him to finish his 14 days.
Right.
Because she had language about whether or not they were given the involuntary detention order, people have seized on that, saying all quarantine is illegal. And that's not what the judge held. She just said the public health needed to make sure at the front end that they were explaining to people, you're going to be quarantined. You can either agree and do 14 days, or you cannot agree, and we're going to hold you for 10 days and then bring you to court after that. And I think most people in that situation, as much as it's an inconvenience, would just prefer to ride out the 14 days.
Right. All right, AG. Well, thanks for your time this morning.
Was there anything else you wanted to get out?
No, I think that's okay. And, I don't have 45 minutes, but
we can give you more if you want.
No, I appreciate an opportunity to come on again. I just think that we're really at a time where people are profiting or really stoking this divisive language about, everyone's constitutional rights are being violated. And it's not, let me make one more point. Chapter 19, which allows for the quarantine without notice, is limited to public health emergencies. So if we were not in a COVID-19 era, it's not like public health could go to your house and take you out and drag you to a quarantine facility. It just so happens that we're in a public health emergency that's been going on for several months now. So it is actually extremely limited in terms of when public health can do it. It's just these circumstances justify it.
Mm-hmm. So if the governor lifts this public health state of emergency, there would be no more quarantine.
We would not be able to proceed under Chapter 19, and under Chapter 3, you have to request voluntary compliance. And this happened, and our office has had to file before in tuberculosis cases, where you have people who are extremely contagious, they're not taking their medicine. You try to get them to comply, you try your best, and if they can't comply, then there's a court proceeding that you have to follow. And one of the things you're required to show is that you've attempted to get voluntary compliance with the quarantine conditions. So, we would go back to Chapter 3. I don't believe, in talking to Linda and other public health officials, we've ever had to use Chapter 19. This is that I think that they've had to do this quarantine without notice. And it doesn't mean that it's unlawful. It just means, fortunately, we've been spared having public health emergencies like COVID-19 in the past.
Right. All right, AG.
I'm sorry, was that a yes or no?
What was the question? Sorry?
That in order to have these quarantine facilities,
yes,
that a public health
there has to be
emergency.
a declaration of a public health emergency in order to proceed under Chapter 19.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Levin.
Thank you.
Wash
All
your
right,
hands.
take care.
Let me know about that field trip. Wasn't kidding.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go with you if you guys go.
Yeah, okay. So, okay. Does he have like a badge or something? He could just be like, "Come, dude, just let us in."
He's the AG. He's probably the last person. No, and then the media.
Yeah,
So
okay,
we're on the
so-
same hell no list.
All right. Looks like we might have to pull an Angel Santos. I'm down. It's 9:22. We'll take a short break. Mary Rhodes from the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association coming on as, again, the public health, the state governor's stay-at-home order will be extended for another week. And there's been a couple changes here with the restaurant. So we wanted to get Mary on to talk about that. And then also they had public health at their general membership meeting with the GHRA yesterday. And she's been talking, on the one hand, you have a lot of people who are clamoring for opening the economy and opening businesses and the constitutional argument and stuff. And then you got people like Mary Rhodes who are working with the government of Guam to ensure that they're meeting all the protocols. And so we'll talk with her and find out where they are with that. It's 9:23. Again, this is the link on the Breeze 93.9. Good morning, Guam.
Learn more about GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus, gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We have the power to improve the schools our kids learn in, the roads we drive on, the healthcare we receive, and the opportunities for more jobs. By responding to the 2020 census of Guam, we can uplift future generations by providing them with the resources they need to grow as a community. Together, we can make a difference. Respond today.
If you plan on leaving your house, don't forget your face mask. Along with hand washing and social distancing, wearing face masks can drastically reduce your risk of infection. Many people who catch COVID-19 can be contagious before they even start showing symptoms. The more people who use face masks, the less the virus can be transmitted and fewer individuals are exposed. When we both wear face masks, I protect you, you protect me, and we are both safe.
When the world feels stuck at home, there are people who would love nothing more than to have a home. Disasters don't stop during a pandemic. Together, we continue to give help and hope to those in need. Help now at redcross.org.
Hafa Day, my name is Zina Cruz Vecina, a registered nurse with the Department of Public Health and Social Services. COVID-19 continues to be a very real threat to Guam. Wearing an appropriate cloth face covering in public is a simple and important way you can protect yourself and others on our island. During a pandemic, no single action will stop the spread of the virus. Wash your hands often with soap and water, and stay 6 feet away from others. Prevention saves lives. For more information, please call 311 or check out our website at www.dphss.guam.gov.
These are some of the signs that someone is thinking about suicide. Talking about wanting to die, excessive guilt or shame, and feeling like a burden to others. Feeling empty, hopeless, trapped, or having no reason to live. Feeling extremely sad, anxious, agitated, or full of rage with unbearable emotional or physical pain. Other signs include changing behavior such as making a plan or researching ways to die, withdrawing from friends or saying goodbye, giving away important items or making a will, taking dangerous risks such as driving extremely fast, displaying extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping more or less, and using drugs or alcohol more often. If you or someone you know is showing these warning signs, get help as soon as possible. Call Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center's crisis hotline at 647-8833 or 4.
Thrive, a coalition for a drug-free Dedido, is an active partnership of community members and leaders committed to a vibrant, resilient, and empowered Dedido. It takes a village to raise healthy and drug-free youth. Thrive with us. Find us online or email thrive@westcare.com.
We got your 6
at 6 a.m. with the link on Breeze 93.9 FM. Bree and I connect you with all the latest news and information you need to know to start your day.
Then check back with Guam's news leader at 6 p.m. for the day's top headlines with KUAM News Primetime.
From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and everything else in between with KUAM Digital, we got your 6.
with
9:28. We're going to bring on Victorious Falon to talk a little bit about the new episode of the One Micronesia podcast. And this segment proudly brought to you by Thrive Coalition, where it takes a village to raise healthy and drug-free youth. Come on and thrive with us. Good morning, Vic.
Hey, good morning, guys.
So just a little bit, because we have a short clip from the new One Micronesia podcast. So I don't want you to give away too much, but just set the stage, paint the picture with your words. What can we anticipate with this this new podcast drop?
Man, so like I said, last week we heard the one for with the POW. So these, like I said, these next couple of episodes are going to be about pretty much the theme is unity, and I'm talking to organizations, groups that that help out with the FAS community here on Guam. So I'm going to be talking to Humanities Guahan today during the episode. It's really fun. I even got to learn more about what they do and what their organization is all about. So I have Kimberly, Bernice, and then Nadine on the podcast for today.
Not two, but three of the awesome folks over there at Humanities Guahan. Not two, but three of the awesome folks over there at Humanities Guahan. So I'm just going to let them jump in and introduce themselves. I don't know what order we figured out, but we'll just go with the flow. So go ahead, ladies. Thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Okay, so yes, thanks so much for having us. Half a day and good morning, everyone. So we wanted all three of us because we wanted to visually demonstrate our diversity and the way in which we as an organization are very inclusive, not only in terms of what we do programmatically, but also what we do as an organization. So just to start with that, but I'm Kimberly Keeling, and I'm the Executive Director of Humanities Guahan, and have been for the past 15 years.
Okay. And I'm Bernice Santiago. I'm a program officer with Humanities Guahan.
And I'm Nadine Sangeni. I'm also a program officer over at Humanities Guahan.
Okay. All right, ladies, again, welcome to the show. And off the bat, we talk about diversity, and it's literally it's what we're showing them, and it's here on the podcast. So let's go ahead and talk about the many programs that you guys at the Humanities Guahan have and have offered for so many years.
Okay, I'm just going to start off just by talking real briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Nadine and Bernice, because they're the program people at our organization. Just to say that, we're a nonprofit and we focus on the humanities, and people get very confused or intimidated by that concept. What are the humanities? So really what the humanities does, the humanities are disciplines that really explore the human experience, right? And so that is all about, it embodies diversity. And you can do that through, through the lens of history, through sociology, through ethics, language, literature, even interdisciplinary fields like women and gender studies or Pacific Island studies. So we're a public, nonprofit organization. So we bridge the gap between like humanities disciplines in academia and the public. So we can best explore and understand our culture, heritage, and traditions here in Guahan, but also in the region of Micronesia and the larger Pacific. So we basically celebrate diversity. It's actually included in our mission statement. And for the past 15 years, we've really focused on very timely and important issues in our community, most of which have focused on Micronesia and the migration of islanders from other regions in Micronesia, other islands and nations, but also other timely issues in our community that affect all of us, like the military buildup, climate change and environmental sustainability, race and ethnicity. So we've done a lot of different projects and programs that focus on these important issues.
Something, just a taste, a Chessa, if you will, of what we can expect.
Can you hear us, Vic?
Yeah, Vic, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no
yeah,
worries.
so it's going to be a great, I mean, it was one of those organizations that, I hear about, I see their logos, I see it going around, but I don't really know what what they do. And, the podcast was a good way of me just breaking it down and learning what they do, the different programs that they have, that they do with the community, and also including the FAS community here in Guam. So it was amazing talk with the three awesome ladies.
All right. I think I'm looking forward to hearing from Nadine Sungeni. I remember her from the town hall meeting in Mangilau after that incident, and she was very emotional. And I think she was one of the first people that you actually had on your podcast.
Let's talk about coming full circle. And what was that like, Vic?
She was actually episode 1.
She was episode.
And
Yeah,
also,
she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was episode 1. And then also a good thing, I didn't know that that was her. She started at Guahan, Humanities Guahan as like an intern, a volunteer, and then after that she went on to work there, and then now she's a program officer at Humanities Guahan. So such an awesome story to hear.
Right. Well, love the podcast. It's really grown over the past several months. So congratulations to you, and keep them coming.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, team.
All right.
You got it. Victorious Falon, the only Green Bay Packers fan here at KUAM. I don't know how you became a Green Bay Packers fan. Is there some connection with Yap and the Packers?
Yeah, I'm still looking for the connection, bro. I'll let you know.
He got to Guam, and the guys here at KUAM like, you don't have a football team? Pick a team. Right on.
What's your team, Chris?
I have like 5 teams. Whatever team, I go with the uniforms. Like, I look good in that jersey. Okay, right on. Thanks, Vic.
All right, see you guys.
All right. See
Right
you
on,
later.
brother. Ready to go. 9:35.
You can watch the One Micronesia podcast show 6:30 tonight on KUAM TV8, and of course the segment is sponsored by the Thrive Coalition.
Right on. Let's move along to the KUAM News Zoom room, where we just had the Attorney General on, giving his 2 cents about this quarantine lawsuits that are happening, and that's kind of funny. We caught his Instagram story coming from a huge win in his UFC debut. I know that he kind of cooled a little, chilled out in Vegas, but back on island, Trev 5-star Jones, UFC fighter. And Trev, did you know that you were going to be heading from center stage at the UFC to 14 days in the hole?
I sort of knew, but I got my test results. I got tested the day before I got on the airplane. So I expected today, when I showed them my results, that I get out a little early. But I did know they were doing the 14-day quarantine. I expected it to be done by the time I get back. I was gone for like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So I expected it to be done, but it's still going on. I got tested at least like 3 times for the UFC, and I got tested the day before I got on the plane, and I got my results today. So I'm expecting to show that to them today, and hopefully I can get out early or something, because it's crazy, man.
What's it been like? You came in and I saw your Instagram story and there was like a long line. So take us through when you arrived and what you went through.
Also, don't cuss.
We want the PG version.
So yeah, we came in. They did the regular getting off the plane, the regular customs form. After you get past the customs people, they have all kinds of other coronavirus forms you have to fill out with little nurses there and things like that. Then after that, you come into the military where you transfer your bags to the military people, and then you sit down there in the side of the airport for about 2.5 hours, I believe. 2 hours. It depends on how many flights are coming in, how full the buses are, I guess. And then when they feel like they got everyone completed, then they go ahead and take you on the bus. Hot bus, by the way. They take you on the bus, and then they drive you to your hotel. And then when you get to the hotel, then again, you wait in a long line with everyone that was on the planes. And it really sucks. And you fill out more paperwork when you get to the front. When it's your turn, they give you a room and everything. Then they send you up to your room, and that's about it.
Man, I know.
Then they I've been here for about 2 days now, so they come up here and they check your temperature every day, and yeah, that's about it, man.
So what was it like going through the airport? I know Guam, when we do the fights in PI coming back, it's always you're going through customs. Everyone's like, hey, good fight, hey, good fight. So what was that like, getting the hey, good fight, but you still got to go in 14 days quarantine?
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, they still had some people that know and remember. They'll see it a lot. And they were like, yeah, good fight, man. That always feels really good and motivating. But yeah, ever since I left, I was thinking about the 14-day quarantine. I was really not happy with it, especially coming off a big win, coming off the highs to coming into 14-day quarantine is depressing, man. It's depressing. Yeah. I just came from smiling a lot. Now I'm frowning a lot.
Oh. But you're getting some help, right? I saw that you got some care packages being delivered.
Yeah, I got some care package, so I'll get through a couple of days. But there's still gonna be those days that are just like
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
We were actually supposed to have Roki on with you, but he just messaged us that he wasn't able to make it on. He's in a court hearing. He's one of the people, I guess, that has filed petitions regarding the quarantine, mandatory quarantine. And, you know, one of the things that these attorneys have described the quarantine is basically being in prison, imprisoned and in jail. How would you describe, I guess, your whole experience and what it's like being in there?
Well, it is like doing in prison because everyone here knows they did nothing wrong. That's where it changes. When you're a criminal, you know you did something wrong. So at some point you have to come into acceptance. And people here didn't do anything wrong. And yes, it's a little nice prison cell. And yes, it has a little view, but it's still a prison cell because people didn't do anything wrong. And that's the difference. It's easy to be locked down in one room when you know you committed a crime and you deserve the treatment you're getting, but a lot of these people don't deserve the treatment. And you know, not everyone has strong minds and strong mental games to get through things like this. And some people have families and jobs and a lot of things that makes this process hard for a lot of people. So it's really like a jail cell. It really is. You can't go out. You get food dropped to your door. By the time you go outside the door, like they ran off, like you're automatically sick. You know, it's like it sucks. It's weird.
What were people saying when you guys were in line at the airport, heading to the facility? What were you overhearing?
They were just saying about the fight, or
about being quarantined.
Oh man, I already had heard from a lot of people. It sucked, man. I had a couple people come home early. They went through the 14-day quarantine. Yeah, they were just saying it sucked. They were saying the best thing that happens here is you get things dropped to you. And yeah, that's probably the best thing that happened. I got some of my regular things dropped, but other than that, I'm still in here by myself. And 14 days is a long time. It's a long time. I can see 6 days, 5 days, but 14 days is crazy.
What? Who do you want to thank for dropping you stuff? I saw you got the PS4.
Yeah, I want to thank my brother. I want to thank my boy Nick Caceres, my homeboy RJ. And there's a lot of people that offer to drop me things. And hopefully I get out here quicker and I don't have to use those things. But yeah, a lot of people on Guam showed me a lot of love, and they've been willing to drop me things and messaging me if I need anything. So that feels really good. When I get out, like I said, maybe we can have like a little barbecue or something, and get back into training after that.
Mm-hmm. What would be your response, though, Trev, to people who may say, well, you got to do this to keep the island safe from COVID? What would be your...
That's why I got it. That's why before I got on a plane, I went to get a test. That was my keeping the island safe. I took up all my own hands and my time, and before I got on a plane, I went to get a test, and I specifically scheduled it where it's very accurate because it's right before I got on the plane. It wasn't 4 days and I was still running around Las Vegas or whatever. It was right before I got on the plane. So I scheduled it, and they just sent me my results this morning when I woke up, and I'm negative. I got tested for the UFC 3 times throughout the whole process. Negative. So that was my keeping the island safe.
Okay. All right.
Right on, Trev.
Well, welcome home.
Yeah, welcome home, and we'll be watching your story.
Yes.
pretty entertaining, bro.
Thanks, bro. I'll try to keep it entertaining.
Yeah, no pressure. Take it easy, brother.
Take it easy.
Have a nice day, guys.
There you go. Trev 5-star Jones, UFC fighter. Fighting quarantine right now.
Gosh, I feel bad. I understand how we have to keep people safe here on Guam, make sure COVID doesn't come in. But, like you said, he took how many tests and all negative,
Yeah, I think it's becoming clear that so many people if you're a returning resident, you have the negative test, you have a place where you can adequately quarantine yourself. And we've just seen the policy change so many times. What was it Dr. Manglotnia said? They follow the virus, right? So anytime there's a spike or anything like that, it just leads to this chain reaction with the quarantine protocols.
Right. And it went from you could test out at 5 days, and then now it's mandatory quarantine. And now we have the Physicians Advisory Group. We've been talking about it actually for a couple weeks now on early test out again at 7 days, with the caveat that you have to have this Sarah alert. And Sarah alert, if you've ever been listening to the show, we've been talking about Sarah alert even before PCOR 1. And they've been waiting for public health to get the ball rolling on the Sarah alert. And so if you are to test out at 7 days, it would be mandatory that you have the Sarah alert on your phone. So we don't know what the final decision is going to be on that. The ultimate decision, again, lies with the governor on what we do. So sorry, if you're coming into Guam, it's mandatory 14-day quarantine with or without, even if you have a negative test.
Right. I think it was interesting what the Attorney General had said. Basically, he was like, hey, read the bulletins. A little harsh. 9:45.
But there are certain people that do get exceptions, so and that's
really
a big problem.
Really concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Really concerning. And I don't know. I'm gonna send some FOIAs because I was just researching the one most glaring exception that we talk about a lot, and I don't think it holds up. So hopefully we'll have more on that next week. 9:45. It is the link on the breeze. 93.9, proudly brought to you by First Hawaiian Bank, Calvo Enterprises, IT&E, and the Thrive Coalition, where they presented that little sniblet, if you will, of the One Micronesia podcast, reminding you at the Thrive Coalition, it takes a village to raise healthy and drug-free youth. We're coming back with a last look at news on this Friday morning. Again, it's the link on the breeze, 93.9. Good morning, Guam.
Learn more about our region. Thrive, a coalition for a drug-free Dededo, is an active partnership of community members and leaders committed to a vibrant, resilient, and empowered Dededo. It takes a village to raise healthy and drug-free youth. Thrive with us. Find us online or email thrive@westcare.com.
Your life moves quickly, so you need a card that keeps up with you. Tap and go with our contactless debit cards. Just open a checking account at First Hawaiian Bank.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
Small businesses are an important foundation in our island's growing economy. They provide essential goods and services to our community while preserving local traditions and creating new job opportunities. Your responses to the 2020 Census of Guam will help small businesses receive the information they need to thrive for years to come. Respond today. Together, we can make a difference.
Hafaday and Mabuhay, I'm Ann Pobutsky. I'm the Territorial Epidemiologist for Guam. Wearing a face covering protects you and those around you. We know that COVID-19 can be spread by people who are not showing symptoms, which means they are asymptomatic. Because Guam remains at risk for significant community spread or transmission of the virus, it is a necessary precaution to wear a face covering when you are in public. Everyone must wear a face covering when they leave home, have it visible at all times, and put it on when they see others nearby. Face coverings are required for everyone when shopping at stores, seeking healthcare, and inside the workplace. Covering your face reduces the chance that you will unknowingly infect someone else if you are carrying COVID-19 but have no symptoms. Prevention saves lives. For more information, please call 311 or visit our website at dphss.guam.gov.
I'll give you all local. All of it. It's all local. Every single molecule of the music we play on this show comes from somebody you know. It's probably your relative. That's Harmony Chia, winter season lover. Good morning, 952. Some of the big interviews this morning on the show. Public health, Annette Uggan, Dr. Ann Pobutsky. That's going to be a good one. Remember, we take all the interviews from the show. After the link, Jason Solis gets his machete out there and he cuts all the stuff up and then he posts it up on the YouTube. If you get a chance, check out the interview we did with Rear Admiral John Manoni. 45 minutes where he just stood in and answered all the questions about COVID. We asked him about sonar. We asked him about the bulldozing of our ancestors. And he stood in and he answered all the questions. So pretty interesting if you guys want to check that out. We now close the show here at 9:53 with the day's headlines. From the KUAM News team, good morning, Sabrina Salas-Matanani.
Off it, everybody. Guam recorded its 31st COVID-related fatality Thursday. A 77-year-old woman with underlying health conditions. She passed away Thursday, 5 p.m. She was admitted to GMH on August 27th and tested positive during initial workup. Governor Lulian Guerrero saying with each passing due to COVID-19, the families are not the only ones at a loss. Our entire island community suffers as well. The Joint Information Center reports 32 new COVID infections out of 402 samples ran through various labs. 16 were identified through contact tracing. Guam's COVID case count is now 2,045. 587 island residents are actively fighting the virus, while there have been more than 1,700 recoveries. And with more headlines, here is Jason Salas.
Hey everybody, I got dressed up for you just so we can read you the news. Well, Guam will remain under lockdown for another week, as yesterday, Adelup Press Secretary Crystal Paco San Agustin says the governor will sign an executive order today, keeping her PCOR 1 directive and stay-at-home order in effect until next Friday, but with modifications.
The difference from what we have now versus what you can expect tomorrow at noon when this one comes into effect is that non-essential curbside retail will be allowed. Also notably different is that restaurants and eating establishments may allow customers onto the premises, but limited for the purposes of takeout dining. So now if you're going to go to the restaurant, pick up your order, they don't necessarily have to come out to you. You can actually enter the establishment, pick up your food that you've already ordered in advance of your arrival.
In-office voting, additionally, by appointment only at the GEC is authorized to begin on Saturday. The modified PCOR 1 conditions of the stay-at-home order goes into effect at noon today. Senatorial endorsements were announced also by the Action PAC Committee, a political action group consisting of a consortium of local business chambers of commerce. They came up with a list of no fewer than 12 candidates, 10 Republicans, and a pair of Democrats. Nestor Locanto gives you the rundown.
Action PAC Executive Director Laura Dakanai says they sent a questionnaire to all of the senatorial candidates, but only about 50% responded. 27% were Democrats, 73% Republicans. Also, 27% were incumbents, 73% newcomers. Of the 12 endorsees, 10 are Republicans, 2 Democrat, and just 4 are incumbents.
Our objective was to ensure that there was fairness for all the candidates, avoiding any political alignment, just a pure, fair, and balanced list. The Action PAC outlined our key initiatives, and that is what we were looking at in terms of analyzing and grading the responses that we received.
She declined to name the 7-member panel that vetted the responses, but said it was not partisan. Democrats had pushed back earlier, though, saying they believed the questionnaires were. Endorsees were asked to support 5 initiatives to reduce the size of government, improve transparency, support the military buildup, move to a part-time legislature, and roll back the BPT from 5 to 4%.
This is not an endorsement per se of the candidate. This is a support of candidates who support initiatives.
Dakanai says they have not committed to any monetary donations, but do plan to campaign for their endorsees. She adds that they will also monitor the activities of those that are elected to ensure they remain accountable to the initiatives they pledge to support. For Guam's News Network, I'm Nestor Lecanto.
Nestor, thank you much. Pico Catholic Cemetery, in other news, will be closed temporarily after a staff member tested positive for COVID-19 there. Catholic Cemeteries of Guam Incorporated says the administrator made the decision to suspend all operations at the Anigua Cemetery until employees are tested and cleared. The cemetery regularly has its facilities deep cleaned and sanitized and is continuing that effort. They apologize for any inconvenience this may cause for residents. That is what's making news now. Now, let's get you back to Chris and Bree on The Link.
Ambient. Okay. There. Hey guys, I don't know what happened, but we took a huge power spike here in the studio. Am I here? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So have a good weekend. Be safe. Stay home. Wash your hands. Wash your fat. For Joe Sirk, engineer, master control, and our reporters in the KUAM News team, remember we got your 6 with our primetime broadcast. Good job today, Bree.
Good job. Good job.
Okay, Guam, be safe. Okay. Hasta adios.